Hi, guys. How are you? What's going on? Oops, phone is going off the hook. It is Wednesday. What's the date? The 10th? June 10th. Can you believe it? School's out as of yesterday for some of the kids around here, including mine. I'm just looking over at the comments. See who's in the house. Some super sweets that I'm very familiar with. Nice to see you guys. It is quiet, though. I wonder if summer's going to be really quiet. And if you have any questions, like anyone who hasn't been here before, or if you have, definitely post them, and I'll do them. It's all good. I see Lily. Hi, Lily. Looks like Deanna was in and posted first. Hi, Deanna. Dimple, good to see you from Ohio. Delinda Jones. I don't think we've met Delinda. Nice to see you here. Michelle, good to see you again, of course. Kathy Dykstra. Kathy Dykstra, I don't think we've met. Are you related to the famous Dykstra? Athlete? From back in the day? I'm good, Dimple, thank you. And Lily, it's good to see you. La Rocho, sorry. Kathy Clayton back in the house, good to see you. Nola Nats. Don't think we've met. Nice to see you. Good morning, good evening to you too. Delinda Jones is from Oklahoma. All right, good to see you. Yeah, everybody's from all over the place here. Delinda. I'm physically located in PA at the moment. Sometimes, well, oftentimes I'll be in PA. I'll just be in like a few hours away from here, sometimes on a Wednesday, because I work from another place too. And other times, because it's a very portable kind of thing I do, which is great because of technology. Obviously, law wasn't that way when I first started. I practice and I do these little side things, sometimes in a different state, depending on where I have to be for some other reason. So, anyhow, questions, guys. Anybody have questions? I'm trying to think if there was anything. It's been going racing fast here, so just trying to think if there's anything interesting to tell you. Well, this is a weird thing that's tech-wise with the SSA, and I've got to get a hold of somebody in the know. I have a client who says I'm connected, and I can actually, I could go and see in the e-file, which is the way it's supposed to be as soon as I get hooked on board. They're supposed to actually, pretty much at the same time, recognize that you're the attorney rep from the 1696 and such, and then click the buttons that connect you to your client's e-file. I believe all in the same office, maybe a right hand and a left hand, which is stupid. Probably I'll be the same person. And this time, this is the first time I've seen this. I'm connected. I can see what's in there. But when I go to upload something, it says not able to be done or something. I don't know what's going on. I'll have to check it. I didn't check it today. It's been going on for a couple of weeks. So I keep sending them letters. When I get a chance, I will hop on the phone and be on hold while I'm doing other work, of course. But I don't know if any of you guys, don't know who has attorneys here and if they've ever had that problem. They probably would have shared it with you if they did, and I don't blame them. All right, so what do we have going on? I see Civil Chick is in the house. That's super sweet. Nice to see you again, Civil. I'm just scrolling up. Kathy Clayton has the actual first questions. Remember, it's about questions, guys. Let's see what you got, Kat. In reconsideration stage, how long will DDS request medical records? Ongoing OT and PT. That would presumably be occupational therapy and physical therapy. You know what they tend to do, and I don't know if it's an internal rule or something. It probably is, just a process, but they send out the requests, in theory, right away, as soon as the adjudicator gets in the case, the request for the records that you mentioned in your application. Historically, if they don't receive them in, I think they gave them 20 days, they would send them a second request. And then and they would usually send a letter to the claimant and or their attorney rep saying, we haven't received these. Can you maybe call them? Okay, that's great. And then we all, we would shoot out a letter. Client would call their doctor's office and be like, yo, you got this. Can you fulfill it, please? And then at the same time, the DDS, because the 20 days passed, would send out a second letter to them. And then if they didn't respond to the second letter and nothing that we all did helped, they're not asking again. And that stuff's going to go unreceived and unreviewed before making the decision, unless the client or the attorney can somehow get them. Usually at that point, it's up to we send out the client's HIPAA version that we have that they signed, and it's the patient asking for the patient's own records to be sent to the patient at the fax number or email provided in that very special high-tech HIPAA form. And the beauty of that form, I have other videos on that, is that they can't charge you an arm and leg for your records if you're in a state where they otherwise can. So we shoot those out. If the SSA is 827, which is also a HIPAA form, but it's not a high-tech HIPAA form. But the SSA is willing to absorb the cost. The cost that they pay is usually more than what you would be paying if you use a high-tech HIPAA. I've noticed that they are often like $15, $30, something like that, which is fine if they're paying for it in theory, although I hate to see the Social Security funds be used on things like paying $30 to a medical provider who has your records, of whom you've paid dearly to have them treat you. Whole nother issue, but that's how I feel about it. Hi, Earth One, I see you there. I like to say Earth Val, but I think it's Earth One, right? So going back to it, if you get a letter like that, and sometimes they don't even send them, which is really, really kind of harsh, because then how are you going to know, particularly if you're pro se? But it's hard for us to know too, because we don't get. It'd be nice if they could. Whole nother sideline here, but if we're already connected to the ERE for our client, anytime they put something up there, like the letter they want to send out to you, which they should send it out, why can't they ding us that there's something for you to see in case whatever the last four of the social are? Or if they want to give us the BNC number that they now use, they start using one of these instead of the social, and we can associate it with our client if they've already given us that information. But just let us know, because if you have 100 files in there, nobody can go and sit. I can't go and sit and scroll, go back and forth between 100 files all day long to see if anything pops up, or else we never get any work done. So why don't they just do that? It would save, if they were smart about it, they would do that little alert, give the attorney, I don't know, 72 hours or 2 business days or something to get you a response or something. It might be that the attorney already has the records, or it could be whatever it is. Just give them sometimes they send out letters that they really don't need to send out. Now, I'm not saying that would be one that they don't need to send out, because the records still aren't there at that moment, but other times it is so wasteful. It drives me insane. All these stamps and gas for USPS to deliver these snail mail things, that many of which don't get to their destination. But anyway, that's another aside about getting the records. Again, for a pro se, I think you want to be calling your adjudicator probably at least monthly. This is my opinion. Adjudicators might not like it, but you have to protect yourself and say, what records do you have? What records are outstanding? And you should be telling them every time you get a new doctor. Personally, I'd be telling them every couple of weeks on my visits, if I'm a robust, diligent claimant going to a lot of visits. But you're the only one that, if you don't have an attorney that's otherwise kind of got the eyeballs on it, you're not gonna know what they don't have. All right. Oh, happy hump day, Sybil says. Yes, happy hump day. My favorite day of the week. Aside from the day my husband comes home. Kathy says, if my kids have DAC benefits, okay, disabled adult child benefits, she's referring to, and got a lump sum payment in the beginning, can Medicaid make me spend that down to get Medicaid? You know what? I'm not going to be able to give you a solid answer on this, Kathy. So it sounds like your kids have DAC, which means it sounds like it's not on you. So you're not the disabled, retired person on whose record they are getting their DAC. Would that be fair to say? Because if you were, you would have Medicare, and this Medicaid would be less of an issue. Would that be correct? So they're getting it off of somebody else. You yourself are feeling indigent enough to warrant Medicaid, which I understand. I mean, health insurance, if you don't have a job that provides it, and I would encourage everyone to go get that job. That should be such an enticement to take a job that might not be the dream job, but having your health insurance is really important. I think that the push for everyone to don't work unless it's your dream job was a real destructor in terms of people's health. And I mean that. So many people that could have had health insurance and don't. But then, of course, there's a lot that can't work full-time enough to get the health benefits, and they don't generally offer it for part-time. But there are creative ways, so just something to think about. Whether or not, so I think the bottom line question, though, is assuming what we all just said is so, will the children's lump sum benefits be used against you as if it was yours to spend? I think I don't have anything in front of me, so I can't say it. Logically, of course, it should not, because that money is supposed to be only sent for them and not for you, right? You're not supposed to use it. I mean, granted, part of it could be their portion of the rent overhead, but the rest of it is from you. That's only their portion. So I'd like to think not. I don't know, though, if that means, Kathy, that you have to have that in a properly designated account. I don't have that information for you. As you've probably heard me say before, if you've been here before, we don't practice this Medicaid stuff. It just happens to be some of the issues that exist in many clients and pro se and people paying attention, their lives, you know, because obviously Social Security disability doesn't provide for, well, federal doesn't provide the Medicaid anyway. It's by your state. So it's going to be, you know, I would contact the state and find out, you know, have your friend do it if you don't want to call, you know. And there are things you can do with those DAC benefits that would be, first of all, like I said, they're not really yours. Just because you are the custodial parent and you're caring for it for them, even that means spending it on their overhead and whatever, which is what, you know, dependency benefits are all about. But I would like to think that they wouldn't count as long as you don't have it sitting in your own fat account, you know, looking like your regular monies if you have it in a properly designated account. But I would make sure, and I would contact, I know this is probably hard, everything's probably online, I don't know, your local Medicaid office. That's probably by county, so it's not even just one big state office. You got to go, I mean, there's a gazillion counties, right? And check it out that way to make sure how that would be done. Because if worse comes to worse, then you maybe use those DAC benefits for something that will be for your kids later, but doesn't count as a gift away. Or I'm not sure what that would be, because it's their money, not yours. Like if it was your money, I would be like, pay down the mortgage, because your house doesn't count against you. So if you use money for that, it's less mortgage you're going to be paying down the road if you're going to be stuck on, you know, low fixed income. You want to have all those future bills as low or close to zero as possible, so that any fixed income, whether it's SSI or SSD or Social Security retirement, more of that can be put to what you want to put it to, instead of these bills that are paid downable. Nolan is from New Orleans. Oh, good to see you, Nolan. Glad you stopped in. Oh, Nolan, right? Nolan at 5:04 to be exact. Kathy Dykstra says, not Lenny, no. Lenny Dykstra, right? What sport was that? Is that baseball? Basketball? I'm so bad on it. But Dykstra, you don't hear that too much. It's famous though, right, Kathy? But it's not, you probably hear it all the time. Because Lenny Dykstra was, I mean, even I knew enough to know that he was pretty huge back in the day. Hi, Tasha. Whistle, red, blow. What does that mean? She's kind of chilling. That's good. She's not misbehaving. Ah, Kathy says, I've watched your videos, but not lives. Yeah, it's kind of fun to just pop in. You can have your lunch, have a cup of coffee. Sybil, you are very welcome. Kathy says, if my kids receive DAC benefits and got a first lump sum, can Medicaid? Okay. I think we already did that one. Hey, Riot Phoenix is in the house. Hi, Riot. I don't know that we met. Does your face look familiar? I am not sure. I don't think we did. I had my hearing yesterday. Ooh, okay. Judge asked a vocational expert one hypothetical, and she had 3 jobs, and the judge changed the terms and got her down to 0 jobs. Is this a good sign? Well, it doesn't tell us what the answer is going to be, but the fact that he asked the second hypothetical means that it's possible he might be picking that one for you as opposed to the first and only the first. And I say might because he has the choice. It's, when he reviews the medicals more thoroughly after he's heard what you had to say, he may be thinking, no, I don't really think those extra limitations are solid or whatever in the medical evidence. Because remember, it's got to be in the medical evidence. So it's not a guarantee of any kind. However, he could have just asked the one. I've seen them do that. And you're like, all right, they're shooting down your guy. They ask the one, and then there's 3 jobs, and they go, counselor. And then it's up to us to do additional hypotheticals to add in all the things that we think are in the medical record that cause other limitations to add to the ones he had in hypothetical 1. And that would then be hypothetical 2, or 3, and 4, and 5, what have you. So in this case, I've seen plenty of people prevail after he does the first one, and he knows there's going to be jobs. He's been down this road before. When he asked that first one, he already knew. Then the second one, he added those in. I've seen it go both ways. So unfortunately, you don't really have an answer, but it definitely beats if you never got to question number 2, because that generally means that you're going to be found not disabled, generally. Just trying to think what else I could say about that. But oftentimes they do add a second one because that one's to get down the exertional level. Let's say he puts you at light up there and there's plenty of jobs. Then he got to the ones with the additional hypothetical limitation and there's 0 jobs. He still needs to, that doesn't mean he needs to always, whether he's going to award you or deny you, he has to have an exertional level that he's going with in his decision. So in this case, he has to pick whatever exertional level was given in hypo number 1, which was presumably the same as hypo number 2, although sometimes they'll say, no, if we dropped it down to sedentary. So it depends on which way he went, but they have to pick an exertional, and an exertional alone doesn't disable anybody, right? But it helps categorize it depending on your age, might make a difference. So he needs that anyway. And then he throws in, but what if the person has to be off task more than 15% of the day? Or what if they need to go take a bathroom break every 45 minutes? Would there be jobs available that he could do satisfactorily? And that's where they could come up with it. No, actually, none would be doable. So which way is he going? We don't know, but he left the opportunity available for him to award. So that's pretty positive. If you had an attorney, they might have a good feel for it too. Although sometimes the judges do fool us, unfortunately. Hey, 333 is in the house. Nice to see you again. I did my initial application by phone with the SSA rep. By the way, guys, something I don't recommend at all. I'd rather even see you do it by yourself online. At least you can get a receipt and know exactly what you said and submitted versus having some SSA rep retype what she thinks you said. She put C medical records for standing, walking, lifting. Well, I don't understand where she even got that information, because I'm trying to think where in the application they don't really ask you that. They ask you for all your medical doctors. So I'm not sure what that's about. And then he goes on to say, I was on light duty my last year working. Is this bad? I'm the part I'm saying right before I'm going to get into the second part is I don't know why she's even asking you, or she put C medical records, like that doesn't even come up in the application. So I'm curious where that's showing up. And then 333 says, I was on light duty my last year working. Is that bad? Well, if you used to have a medium level prior work, you successfully now made it where your prior work is light, and it's harder for you to prove you can't do a light job versus a medium job. But it will be very specific to your job. So something that's called light duty by your bosses, by your employer, has no relation to whether it's light duty under the SSA definition. So look up those definitions as an overall thumb. Light would be you are able to work. A full range of light work would include being able to work up to 6 hours. Stand up to 6 hours out of an 8-hour day. It also means you have to be able to lift up to 20 pounds, at least occasionally during the day, and frequently lift up to 10 pounds. Remember, 10 pounds is more than a gallon of milk. 20 pounds is closer to 2.5 gallons of milk. Put it in perspective. So, if you did light duty and you are now can prove that you can't do, or light duty, and if your light duty did match up with the SSA definition of light duty, and again, that's a big if, because some jobs, they call it light duty and you only have to lift up to 40 pounds. That's called medium for SS work. So don't take what they say. They don't know anything about SS. End of story. And nor should they, and nor are they beholden to. Every industry has its own terminology. So I would, when you do your work history report, you're going to see each job has 2 pages, and you're going to see on page 2, if they don't send it to you, it's because you only had one job in the relevant period, and that lady took whatever she wanted to take and put it in the way she wanted to put it in. I don't like that. But you can go get online, you can get a work history report. Try to get the one from 2024, the most recent one. And if you look at, the 2 pages for the first job, you'll see the questions they ask. And there's a section about, lifting, how much, and also about how long you can walk or had to walk for the job. And I have videos on work history. One mistake I see people make is they really reduce, don't talk about the physical things they had to do on the job. If they were a supervisor, they just want to talk about, I supervised people. I supervised, took attendance, like more of a pedestal job. Meanwhile, they were a supervisor at a grocery store, and they're also hoofing it, lifting boxes, rearranging, like they're very hands-on, hardworking. It's not just all pedestal supervision. And sometimes, because the title says supervisor, and then people just think it's better to show the more white collar you are, the better. It's the exact opposite, actually. So, in terms of your past work, so just be careful what you do there. And if you think she might have screwed it up, you could send in your own work history report correcting all that stuff. I would say this was improperly reflected. If you see it in the application materials, I don't even think if they even send it to you. I don't think they do. If you have an attorney, they can get in there and get a copy of it. I just had one today. I think this week. I was looking at it. I don't remember which case it was, but I'm like, oh yeah, we're redoing that, because I already had the work history information because all my people give it to me early on. And something called triplets that my clients can't stand, but because they're already paper tired by the time I get to that packet. But it lets me know that they had it wrong, if the person had already applied. And then I know we're going to do an amended work history report and get that corrected in there. At least it's on the record that it's wrong. They can believe whichever version they want, but it can't be for lack of, oh, they never told us this. Yeah, she did. So light duty, again, 333. I forget your age. It might not be bad. If you are over 55 or over, all you have to prove is that you can't do medium work, even if you could still do light work. But you do have to prove you can't do your prior job. So whether it's because it's light is too much and you're really more sedentary, or for other reasons you can't do it, it has a lot of hand use, and now you have just forming, painful, constant arthritic hands, can't do that job. That's all you need to do. And then just show that if it was skilled, you can't transfer those skills to that less exertional, sedentary, or light job that would otherwise be available to you. So the skills can't be transferable. It's a bit of a fancy footwork piece of art. Delinda says, if my last day of work will be August 1st. All right, Delinda, you're still working. You're learning in advance. I love that. Should I file for SSD after that date or start it before? You can't start it before because they will immediately reject it because you can't pass step 1. And the field office actually determines step 1. The later offices, it's continued to be monitored because you always have to have passed step 1. Is she working SGA, substantial gainful activity? Now, if your work right now, Delinda, is less than SGA amount as a W-2 person and not SGA if you're self-employed, then you could do it now, even though you're still working that. But it's, otherwise you have to wait. And some people here, I know some people here might be aware, I'm always saying, you might very well not want to file as soon as you stop working. It depends on your impairments, but the fact that you're talking about it now and you're still able to work suggests to me it's very possible that you would be a person who would be better off with a better chance of prevailing on initial or recon versus going the whole 9 yards a few years to ALJ hearing. If you know what you're planning for, start getting to it robustly in those first, say, 3 to 6 months. Setting up certain appointments is going to be really important. Certain diagnostics, all that. And so that when they actually do review your case, they can see stuff that after you stopped working, when you could possibly be disabled, because you can't possibly be disabled for them, that shows, oh yeah, this was different. This evidence is much stronger than what she had while she was still working. Because they already know that whatever evidence you have from the date from before you stopped working, you were not disabled by that condition. That condition was not severe enough. So the subsequent treatment for the next several months can be the stuff that shows how severe it is, because the prior stuff cannot do that because you were able to work. You follow? It's almost, it's logical. It's probably very frustrating now, particularly when you're like, yeah, but it was getting really hard and it was painful and all that. I get it, but I'm just telling you the practicalities of the evidence and how it is looked upon and some of the logic behind it too. It's not always illogical. Nolan says, my child was born with the cleft palate repair and has always had, but has finally been diagnosed with Gowers laying distal muscular dystrophy, apparently ultra rare. I was going to say I haven't even heard of it. Less than 1,000 people in the world. Well, I am very sorry that your child has that. And that's his lot, I guess you'd say. All right, let's see what else you got to say, Nolan. You got my heart with you though. While I see every other type of MD listed, I don't see this one. You mean a doctor? Oh, muscular dystrophy. I'm thinking MD doctor. So you're talking about in the list. Are you looking under listings? When you say you don't see this one, do you know what I mean? Like, are you looking under the Social Security listings? Are you looking? What are you looking at when you don't see it? I will tell you, and I suspect a future lawyer will also, even if you don't see it in a listing, if it meets, if it equals similarly the same functional lack of capacity as a different muscular dystrophy, it's very possible they could say, well, it doesn't meet muscular dystrophy, blah, 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 ABC, but, or ABC doesn't exist, but look at it. The functional limitations are the same as muscular dystrophy XYZ. So we're going to find that the child meets this listing. That is one way if you're looking at listings, which it sounds like you are looking for. I don't know how old your child is. I don't know what the functional problems are, because remember, the children have their own definition of disabled. They don't have to prove they cannot work, since children don't work anyway. They have to prove this other set of standards that I don't do. Oh, I haven't done it in a long time, for reasons, but I did do them in the past. But it sounds like you're on the right track, because if there's significant, and I assume there is, functional limitation, it doesn't hurt to apply him or her for SSI if you are low income. Of course, you know, the parents have to be low enough income where the child needs that welfare benefit to help support the roof over its head, his or her head. Dimple says, thank you for the info. You answered my question about the medical records not being received. I did? I don't recall. Did I do it on here? Or was that through the portal? Someone responded. Dimple says, I wish they would let us know, verify that requested docs have been received. I know. And like I said, it's like we can't be going in every other hour or even every day just to go to the record plan. Now, there are times actually when we might, don't get me wrong, when a case is there could be exceptions when it's like I have to go in there every day. Did that come in? But if that's just generally not how it would go, because we wouldn't be able to function, unfortunately. So it would be nice. And I think the technology is there. You know, it doesn't even have to say what was received, but if they just said there's a new document in the file, and not just that someone was in the file. I don't care if someone is in the file. I want to know, is there a new document in the file put in by someone other than myself? You know, that would be very good, because they do mail everything to us, but mail is so slow and it doesn't always get here. So I would like to see. I gotta tell you, I'm like, should I lean back? I have such a stiff neck, and I went to my physical therapy today. It was leg day though, but it is stiff. I know I slept on it wrong. I felt it this morning when I got out of bed. I'm like, damn. I think it's because I've been doing this. It's probably the combination of me sleeping with this horribly too wide pillow. I'm going to go to my pillow and see if they have thin ones. That's what I'm going to do. But also, I think I'm doing a little bit of that turtleneck business at my computers, which isn't very wise. That screwed me up before, and I had to do some home exercise programs to fix it. Yeah, I agree with you, Dimple. A text. Yeah, just that something is in there. Maybe not to, no offense, you guys, since you can't go in and then you would just be bugging us. But if we could get it, that would be good. And I don't mean you would bug me, but you know what I'm saying. Because what if it is because we just sent something in? That's why I'd like it to be differentiated, because we send in a lot of stuff. We send in letters all the time and all that. No one says they do that with stupid letters to do the CYA action. Yes, I know. And without, I mean, obviously it would be unaffordable if they UPS everything to us and it was safely received. That would not be practical. But, you know, and I know for claimants that are unrepresented, yeah, bang out all the letters. But when they have a representative, maybe not. I mean, I don't know. But only if they give us the alerts about what's in the file. Because a lot of times I know something popped in the file because someone got it in the mail and I didn't get it in the mail yet. So, you know, I always say to my clients, let us know as soon as you get something, because 9 out of 10 times we will not have received it. And like I said, we don't just go and, you know, have tea parties in people's electronic files. We go in there when there's a reason, and or periodically. Okay. Let's see. Kathy's husband is the one that's retired or disabled, or I don't want to say anything else because the other alternative is not something I feel like talking about today. Sounds like he has Medicare. Your kids have Medicare. They have Down syndrome. Okay. Do you think that between you and their father, are they eligible for SSI? Just wondering. You were asking for the SSI, right? But you need Medicaid for yourself, and you're wondering if their money. I feel like it shouldn't, Kathy, but I don't have anything, and I hate when I have to give out answers that I have not looked at or seen the authoritative citations. I'm all about that, but I could say what I think should be, you know. Okay, we've got some interesting emphasis on these letters. I wonder what country that's from, but I'm going to say Datatka, data. How about that? Can I call you that? I'm curious what language that is. Very interesting. Says, I am the rep payee for my brother who is an SSI beneficiary. He needs a new cell phone and service. Should he get the new phone and service under his name, then I will pay the bill or my name. I don't know that it matters, because you can provide him, you could even pay for it. I mean, you could just gift it to him. It's not one of those bills that counts like a utility. It's not a utility bill, interestingly enough. It's not like heat, garbage, water. So I think you could do it either way. I mean, you're going to be the one paying it, right, from his monies regardless. So, you know, it's cleaner if it's under his name, I guess. I can't think of a different reason why there could be a problem having it in his name. Nor do I think I could see a problem if it was under your name, if that's the way you prefer it. You know, sometimes it might be, you're thinking easier if I have him on my plan and blah, blah. So I don't know that it matters. You're just going to always, as always, document, you know, X amount each month that you spend on for him. I don't know. Kathy says, no against them, and I don't qualify for Medicaid. So who are you trying to get Medicaid for? No, it's for me, for them and their pay accounts. I'm not. Okay, I'm losing you here. Oh, not for me, for them. Medicaid for them? That's just, well, yeah. I mean, if they have, again, you're going to have to look at the local Medicaid rules, because some places you can have a person who wants the Medicaid can have tons of money, as long as they're not earning it. Yeah, that's where Medicaid expanded, and some rich people got to slide in on there and take what is supposed to be for everybody else. That can't do that. But for everyone else, there's probably a certain amount you're allowed to have, even as a child. So you're going to have to find out that local, whatever your local rule is on that. It's definitely worth looking into, though, because they get the Medicaid, it can cover the copays for their Medicare choices, which is nice. And I think the deductible, too. So something to be said for that. Oh, Nola for New Orleans and Nat for Natalie. You know, my sister's name is Natalie. Question. If a grandmother made a small account of cryptocurrency, or if it's over a certain amount, oh, meaning she's going to give it to you? Where do we leave off, Nolan? Or I should say New Orleans. I'm scrolling up just to see. No. Oh, Kathy. What? Hey, that's not private conversation. Don't want to intrude on that. If a grandmother made a small account of cryptocurrency, or if it's over a certain amount, I have no idea what the question is. But that's pretty cool. Grandma did that. I haven't even delved into crypto. Makes me nervous. Plus, I think I saw something doing taxes about, is any of this crypto? And I'm like, why is it going to screw me? Like, I don't know. Temple says, red glow was the closest thing I could find to a bird on the YouTube emojis. Oh, I missed that. I tend to ignore emojis. I don't know why. I guess it's because I don't really use them. But I do the colon and the parenthesis for the smile, the vertical smile. That's how old school I am with that. And then sometimes it converts, just because of the software or whatever you're using. But oh, the bird thing showed up. Oh, okay. You saw the bird thing, and it just gave us the colons with the whistle, colon red, colon blow, something like that. Gotcha. Jen Mee's in the house. Hi, Jen Mee. She is having a private conversation with Riot, which is perfectly good. Let's see. Civil Chick says, I have spoken with DDS, the supervisor, because I have yet to speak with my adjudicator, and they said they have gotten everything they need. What kind of letter am I waiting on? You're waiting for them to make a final determination. If they've gotten everything they need, well, that would mean they also got it to the medical expert on staff, who then decides what your RFC is, residual functional capacity, and sends it back, or if you met a listing. And then sends it back to the adjudicator, who, generally speaking, would be like, oh, this is an award. If it takes long, it probably means that the supervisor was blowing smoke out your, probably meaning they got from you everything, function report, work history report, and they're good there. And now they're just waiting on whatever else, which could be more medical records if they have outstanding medical record providers, or it could be they're waiting for the medical doctor on staff to look at all the records that they have not gotten for you and decide your RFC, your residual functional capacity, in which case then it sends it back to the adjudicator, who matches the law with that RFC and then says disabled or not disabled. Focused ladies in the house, good to see you. Is inclusion body myositis? I have no idea. A listed condition? Do you know how many listed conditions? I would have no idea. Especially when it interferes with digestion and breathing, as well as walking, dressing, showering, and gripping things. I mean, most people don't win a listing anyway, so don't even worry whether it is a listed condition. If it is, the system automatically catches it, and then it determines if the medical records about that listed condition meet the severity necessary and all of the objective diagnostic criteria in that listing to see if you meet the listing. That said, a diagnosis of anything, if it's task impairing, can potentially be disabling and awarded as such. So can't tell you if it's a listed condition. I don't have them memorized at all, and that's not certainly one that you would be seeing every day. So unfortunately, I can't tell you that, but you can just simply go to the listings on the SSA site and voila, look under I. I would also look under myositis and see if there's anything about myositis in there. So maybe the I's and the M's, and see if you find your particular variety there. 333 says, she asked, how long did I stand and walk during a prior job? All right, it sounds like Did you have one job in the last 5 years prior to whatever your 5-year window is? If so, then she was taking not what you can do, which is way it made it sound up above, which is more of a function report request, and that's not on your application. But when you have only one job in the past 5 years, or the 5-year relevant window for past relevant work, they will, that is asked for on your application. So the first it says, how many jobs have you had in the last 5 years? And if you say one, and it goes, good, tell us about it. And it's all the same questions that would be on the work history report, but you only have to do it with one. If you say 2 or more, it just skips over it. It doesn't even ask you because it's going to shoot you out. Later on, they're going to send you a work history report. Okay, so you told her that you were on light duty restriction. All right, so that you're kind of pegged into that now, which is fine because if it's true, it's true. Even though the job required walking, standing, and lifting, I couldn't do it. So she, yeah, but now you just you redefine the job to be light duty. That doesn't require the walking, standing, lifting it did before. It's like a new job. Here's a new job, same, same title, but it's going to be the RS job, or yeah, she shouldn't have put see medical records because medical records don't tell you what your prior job was. I mean, that's ridiculous that she said that. But you know what? She's a field office staff. That's like that's a clerk, basically. They're taking applications. They're not to insult ones that have been there a long time and know what they're doing, and some of them do, and they'll ask the right questions. But you just don't know who you're gonna get. As you know, I don't suggest you do it that way. Christina's in the house. Hi, Christina. Hello from California. She says, John Sky 1. Hi, John. I don't think we've met. Thank you for coming. Hello. On average time from recon with congressional inquiry time to decision. On average. From recon. So I think he's asking 2 questions here about what kind of time frame someone can expect. As you all know, there is no per se time frame no matter what they tell you in your little SSA my account business. But they would have said it in there, actually, John. But that's like some average that existed at some point, and who even knows what it becomes. Some of them gotten shorter, some may have gotten longer, who knows. And each case stands on its own. But let's get to it. On average, the time from recon with congressional inquiry time to decision. Okay, so congressional inquiry does not create a decision, as you know. It's not supposed to put its thumb on the pulse of your merits. A person with lower merits because a congressman got involved should now win even though he's not disabled, or the other. But it sounds like you had a congressional inquiry because maybe it was sitting there and you didn't think you even had an adjudicator, which is possible. You were waiting in the queue for the next available adjudicator. And if it's been too long, that clearly, like it's been, for some reason, like it's fallen into a crack, a congressional inquiry can get them to make sure that didn't happen, or if it did, pull you right out. And then things move along. And then says, what about from recon assigned? I think what you mean is adjudicator is now assigned, and then the decision. That will depend on 1, how timely are you with getting your documents in that they're going to request from you. Number 2, how timely are your medical providers with getting their medical records in that the SSA requests. And then you have, of course, all the wild card. Well, those are, your job is not a wild card. That's the thing you can control. The doctors is a wild card, except if you know that they haven't sent them in and they've been requested, you can call them and say, hey, the SSA requested my medical records, and they say that you have not complied with my HIPAA request. If they hear HIPAA request, as opposed to you haven't complied with SSA, they might not care about SSA. But the second the silly behind the desk realizes that, oh, a HIPAA request? You have a HIPAA request. There's a 30-day time frame. You might want to make sure your office does it so, Office of Civil Rights doesn't have to step in and remind you to do it. There have been, for offices that have been very bad routinely, and the Office of Civil Rights has chosen to enforce it on them, there have been hefty fines. They don't do it nearly enough. It's like once in a blue moon, but then it'll be $100,000 of a fine sometimes. I don't know why they don't do a little bit more bites to the other ones. I do think they it's possible that for every complaint about it's been over 30 days or something, or they're overcharging me, trying to get more money out of me, they might send them a letter saying, there's been a complaint about you about lack of fulfilling the 30-day obligation. We suggest you, or whatever. And then usually they're like, then they jump to it. So that, at least that gets them going. Doesn't punish them, but gets them going. And I think if there was enough complaints against a provider, that might be what causes the OCR to say, now we're going to officially review you, Mr. Provider, and possibly sanction you. So let us see this. Do you have a defense to this? So, but anyway, I digress. There is no set time. They used to say 4 months, 4 to 6. I've seen it in 4 to 6 still, but I've also seen way longer. So a few years ago, they were really long. No, I should take that back. Several years ago, they were really what we would call reasonable. You guys might not. And then maybe, what year are we talking now? Early 20s, maybe. Just a few years ago, it just blew up. Initial and recon were so slow, like 15 months for a lot of people, John. And it was really horrible to the point where in 2024, they put a 6-month moratorium on CDRs so that the people in the state agencies that were working on the CDRs, they probably continued what they were working on, but they didn't start any new ones, is my guess. For 6 months, that's a heck of a lot of CDRs across the country. And they put those people on helping work down the initial and recon workload. And then, of course, they stopped that by the end of 2024, I guess. And now, of course, there was a backlog of CDRs. You can't win. Nolan says, Nolan, I'm losing your questions. I'm not really following. No, Nolan, sorry, Natalie. New Orleans. Yes, the SSI automatic listings. All right, there is no such thing, really. I think what you mean is the Social Security disability listings, which if you meet them off the cuff from your medical records, if it proves that all the little criteria are met in that, whatever that listing says, then you're automatically found disabled. That is automatic, for lack of a better word, right now. It's not only SSI, though, it's SSD as well, or disability in generally amongst the programs. You're very welcome. TYSM must be thank you so much. I haven't used that one. I use TY. I like that. TISM. Pop. Natalie says she's almost 20, but like a child in many ways. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. As moms and dads, right? Hey, Willie's in the house. Hi, Willie. How are you? I sent a certified mail in March and still waiting for it to show received, even though I know already. Oh, you never got your green? Did you do it with the green card? Because you can do certified mail and certified mail RRR. Certified mail return receipt requested. That's where you get the green card back. Yes, you can look at the green card is that someone there physically had to sign for it. So that's kind of nice too. Costs a few extra bucks, but. PM says, are you able to assist people in Florida? Yes. I have plenty of people in Florida. I also do all the other 50 states. I probably was one of the first people to do all the states, I would say, because I was doing it in 2005. Back when it was a lot more difficult too. Now it's easier just because there's so much more that's online. But yeah, because when people get this confused, Social Security is federal. It is all federal. All the rules are federal. So even if you have a state worker it's been outsourced, the work is outsourced by the feds who oversee it to the state's whatever agency they're going to use. Sometimes it's something within the education department even. It's bizarre how they set them up. But whatever they have there, and most of them do now have disability agencies, I think, they'll send it there. They hire people that are going to do the federal work. And they all follow the same rules. And they all follow the same technology. And I'm obligated to use the online system because I have direct withholding from the SSA. I've been with them for a couple decades, register. And we're obligated to file things online. We can't, we're not permitted to not do that if we want to continue to have direct fee payment and all that kind of stuff. So of course we do it. And plus it saves a bundle. You don't have to have printers and ink and all that other business that we had the first 10 years. Had a lot of that. Well, I think I got rid of mine in like 2011, so it's been more than 10 years, but that's when I went from all these files all over the place to scanning everything and none of that. Do a lot of shredding though. All the incoming mail. Vietnam. Okay, thank you. Dataka. Thank you for that. That's a lot of squiggles. I mean, they look nice. It's a little more vibrant than our plain language here, right? Hi, Jen Me. Jen Me says, since the system is based on the 12,000 essentially full-time 9-to-5 jobs and or SGA, what are the real thresholds for self-employment to have keep benefits, particularly after approval? The real thresholds don't go over SGA as defined by the SSA. And as you know, self-employment is different because they know you can fudge the SGA, the number, which would be the SGA black and white rule, So it does often come down to what activities you're doing and how many hours you're doing them a week. But they don't have, per se, a black line rule on the hours. If it's full-time, it's always going to be SGA. And there is rules about, well, depending if you're in the trial work period, and they're trying to see if it's trial work period income, even if you didn't earn the trial work period amount. In the end, they'll say, well, if you hit 80 hours, which would be about half time, right? Then we're going to consider it TWP. And that's, 80 hours a month. So you figure like 20 hours a week. So you have to be really diligent in all areas. And I always say good documentation. Just, like any self-employed person in a perfect world is, it's well documented, right? Your calendar, did you work that day? How many hours? And I always say, do not consider your thought processes when you're sitting on the hopper as work time. People get tempted like, well, I was studying up on this one little area so that when I went and did this job, I'm like, I wouldn't even include that because you would be doing that before you even learned how to do the job. If you were learning, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like me going to school to get a law degree. That was not considered, that would not be considered work time if I was also working on cases with a lawyer, right? My school, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't consider it that way. And I don't see anywhere where they say you must. So as a general rule, okay, so if I go out, let's say I go out and meet someone for lunch and we're talking about business, that's probably, at least partially, a write-off of, this is two separate things now, a write-off of the lunch to whatever percentage, the IRS lets you do that because we're talking about business. It could be networking. It could be a client event. But that would not be, while I'm chewing my food, or if I meet a friend out for lunch who happens to be, we talk about business, I don't consider that work time. I just don't. It's too convoluted. Not that I get paid for doing that anyway, or any of the continuing education we have to do. But you're not either. So I would just consider that something different. Like You know, like let's say you're learning new software because you think you might want to incorporate it into your business and the rest of your life. Like, I'm not counting that as work. Work is to me directly what's going to make that paycheck. You know, it's not if I'm trying to build, now I want to be a doctor, you know, so I'm going to start learning that on the side while I'm doing this. That's not, you know, could get me business, but it's still not. Monthly service bill. I forget what the question was. Sammy's in the house. What an interesting name. Channel, screen name. Sammy Bumabeel. Do I have that right? Or Bumabee. Hi, Sammy. Nice to see you. Love your channel, she says. I'm in the process of filing, and it's a fight. Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for the kind words. Well, the process, you know, the filling out of the forms is really not the hard part. It's getting the field office to connect the dots, process the application. If you have an attorney, getting them connected. The things that take a button here and a button here seem to be the hardest thing for them to accomplish. Every time I file a claim, I'm like holding my breath, like, please, let this one just be processed properly. It should all happen within a week. And it only takes a couple seconds. Not so much for them to check all the application answers, but to get me connected, literally. I even use all their forms. Like it used to be, we had proprietary, we all used our own like fee forms. Then they came up a few years ago, they came up with one that they could readily recognize as meeting all the rules, so they didn't have to read each one and have a lawyer look at it and all that. I mean, it was a smart move. So I jumped onto theirs because I was sick and tired of them making mistakes with the same fee agreement I'd had for 20 years. And that is much better. But nonetheless, the very routine things they have to do in every single case, it troubles me that it always continues to be, you know, like quicksand. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I'm sure some offices are better than others. Sammy says, you have put out a lot of helpful information. Thank you, Sammy. That is very nice, kind words. No one says, oh, sorry, would it affect her approval? You know, I'm mixing up questions here, Nolan. Is that the muscular dystrophy? Would what hurt her case? Let me just scroll up here. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna try to see. No, it's from me. I don't want to mix it with Kathy. I don't know what your question is on this one there. No. Oh, okay. I should have looked down instead of up. The account is crypto in my daughter's name. Was your daughter trying to get SSI? Yes, that would be an asset. Is it worth more than $2,000 along with anything else that's in her name? Remember, what's in your name also counts. If she's an adult, you said, right? 20, right? Yeah, so that's an asset she has. So if it's under the 2,000, if all the countable assets are under 2,000, she's okay. If it creeps up because it increases in value, it may not be okay. So if it's SSI, it's probably not a good idea to have things like that hanging out without having them in specialized accounts designed specifically to protect Medicaid and feasibly SSI eligibility. Hey, Cindig's in the house. Hey there, Sin. Sybil says she has 5 listings. Well, you believe you do anyway. Excuse me 1 second. Don't you have a phone? The lack of respect. All right, Randall Marcus is in the house. Randall, we didn't meet, did we? Hello, great people. I am new here. Oh, there you go. What a friendly beginning. Will I be able to qualify for SSDI if I worked only 6 years out of my recent 10 years? I'm 42 years old. I got 29 credits total for lifetime LD work worked is in October 2023. At 42, so first there's double check that you have the requisite number of overalls. And I don't want to go any further on that little dive there, because you know how for retirement we need 40, but that's when we're 62. I'm sweating, guys, incidentally. I have the door closed because they're so loud out there, and the air conditioning's out there. But I have this other door open to the outside and a little fan up above. I'm going to have to get the pedestal fan in for next week because I'm going to be sweating here the whole time. So 6 years out of my recent 10 years. All right, so that means if you earn more than, if you have 4 credits for those 6 years, it puts you at 24 credits. You definitely have 20 credits in the last 10 years, which is what you need for SSDI. And I'm just trying to think. I don't think 29 divided by, I don't know that that other requirement impedes here. You have to look that up. I'm going to try to look that up. I can't do it right now, obviously, but does the overall credits, which does not have to be 40 until you get much older. So I'm thinking you have enough. That is not implicated as long as you do the other one. But I want to know if overall that's true. I think there is a second requirement, but I think you probably meet it. Last day worked is October 2023. Okay, so you know where your 6 years lines up. I think you're saying maybe it's 6 years before October 2023. You're going to want to keep a firm eye on your DLI, date last insured, Randall. Number one, you're 42 years old. You're at the hardest, one of the hardest stages to prevail. I don't know what your problems are. Maybe you can bang it out of the park on a listing, something. But I always, my younger people know this, particularly my younger people, but it's true for everybody. Keep an eye on that date last insured. If that's coming up very soon, you're going to want to see if there's something you can do with just very part-time, easy work and make, you know, $9,000 a year and keep getting 4 credits, so that DLI is always going to be a few years ahead of you no matter what. So if you don't prevail, because it's very hard to meet at your age right now, the standards are hard, then you can apply again. And eventually, if your condition continues and it's significantly limiting, even if not limiting enough now, it will be enough later. And unfortunately, also with age, we tend to do deteriorate in other ways that can also contribute to findings. So I just want you to always think about that avenue B. If A fails and you don't win this time, how long are you still insured that you could even continue to retry that fight under the same standards? Because you got the same standards for another, 7-something years, and then you get a slightly better standard when you're 50, and then so. Just so you know, you guys, it's 2:10. We've been here for 1 hour and 10 minutes. Just time check. Hoping a little draft comes in the door. I opened the door and Fiona, the tortoise, walking out, and then I saw her come walking back in. I always have to check at the end of the day. There's a deck out there, and she can't get off it, because she'll go and hide by. There's a fridge out there, and she'll go hide between the wall of the house and the fridge. It's like our outdoor fridge for like beverages. And she would sleep through the night. Occasionally she's fooled me and she's been out there all night. Obviously, we only do this in the hot summer. We don't do this. I don't even do it in the spring. But she loves the sun, it gives her her UVs or whatever she needs. Sunshine says, my attorney's office thinks I may have to see a Social Security doctor. That would be very, very normal and to be expected, in my opinion. She says, I have already completed the CE. Well, that was the SS doctor. But I have a feeding tube and I'm sick. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I told him I would go. So the CE was the SS. A consultative examination is the SS doctor. So did they tell you that in the beginning and you didn't realize the CE was the SS doctor? Or are you saying that I did one CE, say it was for physical, and now they think I have to go to one for mental? So he said, I don't know why I would have to. The only reason you would have to do both is if there was something in your record that suggested anything mental, such as reduced concentration, maybe some anxiety. Well, reduced concentration due to something, like a medical thing, which it generally is. It could be anxiety, it could be pain, it could be hunger. I don't know. Anxiety stemming from the illness. That's very, very common. So if they need to see if you have any additional functional limitations that reduce the number of jobs that you could do even further, because maybe there's still some jobs you could supposedly do despite your illness. And I don't know if you're on a feeding tube 24/7 or, you know, how that goes. Is that something that takes you out of work for 2 hours for every meal? You know what I mean? That's the only thing I could think of, unless the CE you already had, which is the SS doctor, is the one that you've already done it. So, you know, it's unclear to me if you're saying that they said you have to see two. But if it's two, it's because you didn't have sufficient evidence for them to be able to establish an RFC on the mental or the physical. And they need to learn that, because they're finding that it could be she's disabled or it could be she's not. And that Sunshine, you're not the Sunshine from a few months ago, several months ago. There used to be a Sunshine in here. I'm assuming that's not you, right? Because it might have had a different ending. Virginia's in the house. Hi, Virginia. Good morning, Chica. Question: at my CE appointment, they said they didn't have my lupus in file. So I called SSA, and they said that the CE should have had it. They said an error on the CE. They said error on the CE, isn't it all together? Well, here's the thing. I'm not sure how much it matters. Do they always give a little list of here's all the claimed impairments? They certainly don't give them a list of everything. We usually have far more impairments. So the CE's job is not to evaluate your lupus, but to evaluate it's like a snapshot of if it's physical, Virginia, it's kind of like evaluate your strength, your ability to walk, stand, sit, rise from a sitting position. And lupus, which could be with flares and whatnot, right? You know, them knowing about it doesn't really make a difference, because the fact that you couldn't go to the CE means it wasn't preventive on that day, right? But how does it do with those little micro checks, those little tests, like the strength squeezing, and can you do heel to toe? And so they're trying to get like it's kind of a CYA, I suppose. I don't know that it would be harmful error for the doctor not to know every disease you have or impairment. They don't usually even get sent any records, because their job is to examine you, perhaps kind of objectively, without already knowing, so they don't have a preconceived idea of what should or should not be going on. I mean, what if they have a lupus person who's quite fit as a fiddle, still running marathons, and then you come in and it's lupus? They're like, she's fine, you know. They have a conceived. I don't know, but I don't know that it would necessarily warrant a whole new CE exam, if that's what you're thinking. Randall says, I have extensive medical treatment in the last 3 years. Oh, good. Not good that you needed it, but good that you have it. Musculoskeletal, asthma, and skin disorders, 6 orthopedic surgeries. Holy moly. 6 in the last 3 years. Yeah. Sounds like you're being a very good claimant, which coincides with being a good patient. So it kind of works hand in hand. Doesn't mean we like it. I'm not one of those And but if I had a claim, I would have to be, right? 333, my medical records from orthopedics stated how long I could stand, walk, and lifting limits based on back and knee conditions. My medical records from orthopedics. All right. You're saying they gave an opinion as to how long you should be limited to standing, walking, lifting. All right, that's their opinion. Maybe that's why she referenced. She doesn't have your records though, so how would she even know to do that? It's just what she did was, I'm sorry, asinine, in my opinion. It made no sense. And we're referring, guys, for anyone who just got into 333's prior discussion about applying on the phone with a clerk, something I entirely don't recommend. And that was this weird question they asked. Matt F. from Virginia. Hi, Matt. Matt says, I finally got my SSDI and award letter this week. That's awesome. I don't think we've met, by the way. The monthly benefit was lower than expected. There is no, he wants to know, what is the typical range for monthly benefit? There is no typical range because, I mean, the average is probably like 1,700 or something at this point when they take the whole country. But it all depends on exactly what you paid in for. So did you paid lower than what you, like, you expected something that maybe you had no basis to expect. Now, had you been looking at your estimates previously, I wonder? You know what I mean when I say estimates? Like you can download anyone who does not have a pending claim. I'm sorry. Yes. Anyone who does not have a pending claim and is not perhaps receiving, because then they know what they're going to get, can download their Social Security annual earnings statement from their SSA.gov account. And in one section of it, it's going to say, if you became disabled today, this is what we think you're going to get. And that's if you became disabled on the day that you downloaded it. It doesn't apply to later because now the calculations are based on more months that you either worked and added to it or didn't. And they look at the top 35 years. So Matt, we pay in X% of our paychecks up to whatever the amount is now. 180,000 a year is the most we can actually be taxed on, something around that range, for Social Security purposes. But if you are, say, a $50,000 earner or a $100,000 earner, you're not going to get as high as a guy that made, your benefit is not going to be as high as a guy that consistently earned 150. Likewise, if you're 25,000 average, and it's the average over 35 years or whatever amount of all the years, between the day they find you disabled and before. But they don't count whatever day they find that you became disabled as of. They don't count the zeros after because you get to waive those basically from the calculation, which is beautiful. So depending on what you paid in for those premiums, it's like paying premiums. The more premiums you pay, the bigger life insurance policy or health insurance policy you can get, the more coverage. So that would be why that is. They asked you when you applied, have you looked at your earnings statement and do you agree with what it says? And you presumably said, yes, I agree with what it says. So if you think that was wrong, if anything in there is wrong, that's something you would want to have proof of and correct it. Civil check is right, she says. SSDI depends on the money you made. Well, actually, not the money you made, but the money that you paid the taxes on. Don't be giving those under the table people thoughts that they might have a big Social Security amount because they're going to have super tiny. Randall says, all my 29 work credits is in past 10 years only. Oh, yeah, because you can earn up to 40. So you're good. But remember, yes, you can apply for SSDI if you're, I have to do a formal DLI calculation, which I can do. We have a little service for that. It's not very expensive either. But when you can even call for free, 800-772-1213, and ask them, when you get a live body on the phone, ask them for your date last insured for SSD. If it's in the future, you can definitely apply. If it's in the past and you haven't applied before, you can actually apply. You just have to assert and prove that you were disabled before that date last insured. But we think that your date last insured is in the future. So, if you were a steady worker until you stopped in, what was it, October of 2023, Randall? We're at 2026. So if let's say it was October 2023, you earned all 4 quarters probably for 2023. That means we got 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Possibly you're insured through the end of 2028. But you can call that 1-800 number and plan it for sure. It's a good thing to know. 2028 is only 2 years away. You have used up 3. So unless you get on the part-time bandwagon or the gigger bandwagon and do it carefully and properly, and it's totally doable, and you could still file now while you're doing it. It doesn't stop you from being found disabled. Because it's all going to be about your medical records. So you could do that, and then you're protected if it flies sideways for you because you have that really high burden. It's not easy. And I don't know what your problems are, because obviously, we have younger people and they do win. Sometimes on initial, sometimes recon, oftentimes after ALJ hearing. But there's a lot that don't, sometimes there's some of ours even, I still take them because I think they deserve a chance, but it's not easy. And I tell them the same thing. You want to have your plan B. You want to keep some credits coming in, whether you are house sitting for a fee for people. Might be a low fee, but you're earning not enough to be SGA, and you're earning more than enough to get your credits and keep going, and then you never will run out of your DLI. What if there's any, not a temp agency, but a house watching agency? That would be a great job for disabled people, senior people. I think I might have to do that one day when I retire. Imagine, can you come watch this house for 3 days, and you get paid $100? I could do that. I mean, you're not doing any of the cleaning or anything. You're just living in the house to keep a presence there. Don't make a mess when you leave. Buy your own food. Clean it up. Take your garbage with you. I don't know. Sounds like a good idea. Huh. Ton is in the house. Hi, Ton. We contacted congressional inquiry. So you made a congressional inquiry in November and then got denied in March. Okay. Hired attorney and finally have a date with a judge in August. Originally filed December of 2024. Okay, I don't know what you've contacted your congressman for. Maybe had it fallen in the cracks and you didn't even know if you had an adjudicator or what your case was. That's usually the valid reason for contacting them, to ask them to, poke the SSA and say, where is this case? As you can see, they can't change the result for you. They're disabled by the SSA terms, or you're not, in their determination, in which case then you appeal like you've done. So yeah, you got a pretty speedy hearing. He was denied in March, probably filed his appeal by April, and has a judge's date in August. They're doing pretty good on speed at the Office of Hearings Operations. Some of my cases are not that speedy, but other ones are. So it just kind of depends. But you filed in summer of 2024, so that was a long stint that you went. So you were on recon through a year and 4 months or so. Yeah, even more. A year and probably 6 months at least. So that's a pretty long time. So you guys, initial and recon, a year and 6, that's 18 months. That's 9 months each on average. I'd say that's on the long side. We've seen longer though, but average-wise. Jen Me says, thank you for that response. Yes, even if something is not work SGA. Yeah, I was just interested in what in practice they do with any work activity as far as functional capacity post-approval. Keep track of it. I would just be really careful. Tailor it. I always say, if you're going to do self-employment, tailor it around the rules for Social Security disability. You could do it. I mean, I know how I would be doing if it was me, because I know the rules, and I think you know a lot of them too, Jen. So just tailor that the hours put in, keep them documented on a calendar. So in real time, so like 3 years later when it comes up, you can show, no, here's my calendar. It's exactly what I did. If you have clients that pay you, you deposit that money right in the bank. Keep track of all your expenses so you can write off whatever you need to. That makes it show that it's the net earnings from self-employment is what counts, and that keeps it under SGA. Now, if someone has not prevailed in their case yet and they're doing self-employment work because they don't have a prospective DLI and they want to file again, then same thing with the Social Security work, except you want to make sure you maybe don't write off every single business expense you possibly could, because you want to pay taxes on at least that 8,000 or 9,000 that's left. So leave that as taxable. So self-employment income, net earnings from self-employment, it's almost like what's at the bottom of your Schedule C, because you want to earn the credits for that work. Still keep your hours low and everything, whatever works out, but you want to get those credits to either gain back insured status so you can now file another Social Security disability claim. It probably negates SSI, but if the person already was denied disability already, their evidence wasn't wasn't enough anyway in the eyes of the SSA. Jen says, I can click it properly. What the heck? How easily do they kick people off if they are working, even if just self-employed is not just self-employed, I would say. That's probably easier to screw up, because the law sometimes is different than the thresholds for certain ALJs. No, the ALJs have to follow the same laws. And really, it's not going to be the ALJs that kick you off. It's going to be the lower levels, because they're the ones that do the CDRs. You might have to appeal, if you disagree with their finding, which could include, they had me at over SGA, but actually my earnings was actually far less. I just failed to write off XYZ. I didn't even know, I wasn't really in tune that I could write that off or whatever. If I wrote that off, I'd now be under SGA. But the numbers are all the same. It's the hours that get a little, those are not carved in stone. So it's what you're doing and the hours, and whether your pay reflects, because if you're working 35 hours a week, but you're only making $1,000 a month, 35 is actually probably considered full-time, but let's say you're doing 25 hours a week, you're self-employed, you're a lawyer, and you're learning less than $1,000, that means you're getting underpaid probably for your work, purposely. So it's going to be like, no, the value of those lawyer hours are probably at least $100 an hour or whatever. So that income is not reflective. They're fudging things. Maybe they're getting a free, they're playing around with it. But otherwise, for people that aren't doing that, which would be the 99.99% probably, it's doable. The problem with having active hours is that it often shows that they are doing more than they said they could not do before, now that they're self-employed. So it's, and we're talking about staying under SGA, so this part wouldn't matter, but you never want it to become past relevant work either. So you want it to be under SGA. Influenza, how are you? I don't think we've met. Nice to meet you. Is SSA 455 short form disability the same as counts as CDR 54? I don't know what you mean by 54. You mean 454 with 5 to 7 year diary? I'm not sure what the question is. It sounds like you got a short form disability the short form for a CDR check at the very least, and maybe you're in your late 50s, and the fact you got a short form means they don't expect you to improve, which is why you have a 5 to 7 year diary. Will you get another one in your 60s? Possibly. It would probably be a short form for short at worst. And I have seen them sometimes say, we determined that we don't really have to CDR you at all. So they don't even do the short form. I hope that helps. I mean, there's no solid answers, obviously, because every case is different and you don't know who's going to be in the SSA office on any given day or administration or whatever. But right now, I wouldn't be concerned. Users in the house. Hi again. My question will be in multiple parts due to character limit. One of two. On SSI, how much can I earn monthly from part-time self-employment? SSI. First of all, confirm for me you were talking about SSI, the welfare program, versus SSDI, which stands for Social Security Disability Insurance, because that will be a huge difference. Hey, John Lantieri's in the house. John says, quick question. Good to see you, John. What does it mean when Social Security sent us a letter that they approve of the disability that was filed, but they're working on the non-medical? If you got that letter and didn't tell me about it, John, that means that should mean that the medical finding has come through favorably by the adjudicator, and now they just have to do all those little dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure the person was really insured, like double check the DLI, make sure it matches, that it was okay. Things like that. Is the person, do they have any outstanding alimony arrears that have to be offset for any back benefits, any child support, any federal debts that they're supposed to have to pay out of their back benefits, things like that. Usually nothing burgers. Formality. Shube says, hello, Mrs. Joy. That's like you're talking to my mother? Man. Mrs. Joy. Hi, Shube. Good to see you. That would be Stephanie. Or at worst, Ms. Joy, but please don't even do that. Okay, Richard Pauley's in the house. It's been 90 days since I don't think we've met Richard, right? Wow, I just glanced at your picture, Richard, and it's like on a quick glance, if that back building, which is probably the house, was a little not so nice, I'd be like, oh my God, that looks like the backyard view to a shed where, like my backyard. It's like the angle of the, I don't know. Been 90 days since my review for DSSI from the state. Who's sending information to Social Security? I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. CDR? Or is that you're just... I don't know exactly what you mean, Richard. I'm sorry. Should I go to the office, see what's going on, or wait still? Well, I don't... 90 days? What do you mean since the review? The review takes a long time. Do you mean since they started the review? Is that what you mean? Since they started the medical workup of your claim that you just recently filed and got it processed at the field office and they moved it up to the state office who does the federal work, though. You know, it's outsourced. And you're saying it's been there for 90 days. Is that too long? Should I go see what's going on? Tell me what you mean. Virginia says, is it more chances of having my doctor to support me of my condition? Is it more? Better chances of having my doctor to support me of my doctor said what she got to fill out. Cute. He said what she got to. But we're at the third stage of medical review of DDS. I don't really know what you're asking. I mean, your doctor's supposed to send her medical records. They hopefully are competently written and talk about your symptoms and the things you complain about, right? So, let's see. I don't know. I mean, if you're asking if she should do an RFC, I wouldn't, because unless you know what her answers are going to be, and if they're going to match her records reasonably so, be consistent with anyway. I mean, you could be asking for trouble. Randall says, I wish to get the representation from your firm. Oh, that's super sweet. I assume I have twice more specialty doctors treatment than the average person does so far, as long as 40 credits is a requirement only for retirees. Randall, I don't make the initial screening. I have people that do that for a reason. Because I would probably take everybody, and then we can't really do a good job for everybody. But and different categories have different, some categories are full a lot, and some are, constantly moving and not full, and very, very different. So, and we try to cover all categories. So you just have to see if they'll tell you, and if we do have an opening, they'll send it to me to call you. So you could do that if you go to joydisability.com. I usually post it here, but I didn't today. And if you look in the upper left, it's the free disability evaluation. That'll come down automatically. She will review it, check the category. Sometimes they can try to work it into a different category. Sometimes they can't. So anyway, give it a shot. I appreciate it. I hope we can. John Gone. Oh, John Gone is in the house. Look at you. Oh, my good day, Joy. I'll behave just for you. You are so funny. You haven't been around in a while. I've seen some of your posts, but you haven't really shown up in person. So anyway, it's good to see you, my friend. Jeanette Meyer is in the house. Hi, Jeanette. How far back can an adjudicator go? And I don't think we've met Jeanette. How far back can an adjudicator go on medical records on initial claim? Well, they can go back as far back as they want. They tend to like to limit it to 2 years or less. I would say generally, some of them say 1 year. And they can never find you disabled based on that information. It has to be where it's continued to now. So that's why you have to be aggressively treating, following at the very least for everything. And because not everything has a treatment and not everything is curable. We all know that. But for me, if there's something really pivotal and it happened 8 years ago before they stopped working and they went back to work, let's say they had a back surgery and they were able to go back to work. And then 4 years later, I see they need physical therapy on the back, while they're still working, so they're not disabled yet, but they're addressing these growing impairments. And then I see that I might get that stuff because if their back problem is now what's considered one of the big problems, that I think would be good historical perspective, specifically under those circumstances. If they had a surgery 20 years ago, not so much, particularly if they just started, treating now for it. But it should be as in a roundabout way anyway. So even if you're not going to get the records from 20 years ago, which you probably can't get anyway, the fact that you had the surgery 20 years ago should be evident in the records today. We're just talking if it was surgery, but because you give the history to your doctors today and you say, I had a lumbar surgery in 2005 and I had this and I had that, my knee replacement, so there's reference to it in there, and that may be sufficient for the historical perspective. And the reason why I like some historical perspective sometimes, even though I know it can't be the proof of being disabled today, because I'd like them to see that this has been growing. This person didn't leave work when she had the first aches and pains. She got physical therapy. He or she got had the surgery, did everything right. Went back to work. You could see in the doctor's notes that there were still complaints about pain, but she still went back to work. Wasn't the kind of person that just threw in a towel. And I do that for a psychological reason. I think it's nice to see the work ethic of the person. you know, if it's there to be seen, doesn't mean that people that didn't do that don't have work ethic. It's just that there's no evidence to supply on paper. So that's another reason why it can be good to have that stuff in there. Old Grizz is in the house. I can't believe you're here, my friend. Hello, Stephanie, checking in from Montana. Heart attack can't keep me down. Thanks for all you do. Oh my God, we were praying for you there, old Grizz. You and your better half. What are we going to do with you? And yes, same day. That's how we do it, guys. The information went up to the adjudicator. Even if it's not the impairment that the person is prevented from all work from, if there's an exacerbation such as that, we just get it in and like get all the information. Here's the hospital for them to order the records and stuff because they can have their little HIPMERs and all this other stuff. But yeah, that's why. And some clients are really good about sending us the information. Usually sometimes it's a spouse, you know, if someone's not able to send it in themselves because they are medically severely troubled at the time. But sending those records in, not the records, sorry, the fact that there was a visit to this particular thing or this MRI or this hospitalization the other day. Those are things, those objective things or things of magnitude like this are things I want that adjudicator to know about. And I immediately notify them of the occurrence and where everything can be had, even if we don't have any of the records yet, because they're going to be ordering them, and we will be ordering them if we have to. But we're not supposed to duplicate, so give them a chance to order it. You know, again, it really, depending on a case, depends on whether such a thing as this would be kicking out all jobs. Like this particular impairment, assuming it has a 12-month durational proof. Everyone's requirements of proving disabled, they have different laws that apply to them. So an older person, such as myself, this is going back to the grids. We don't have to prove we can't do all 12,000 jobs. We have to prove we can't do the one we had if we had one in the last 5 years. That was SGA. And if we did, if we can't do it, could we transfer the skills to an easier sedentary job? Or, for the older people, we only have to prove that we can't do a heavier job, medium or above. So it is true that cardiac things can lend themselves to that, which is helpful, particularly if we don't have like severe back issues that would very much lend itself to that. So the cardiac it's not going to really reduce a light or sedentary, but it can reduce you from being able to lift 50 pounds multiple times a day, right? Potentially. Jen says, yes, I'm thinking about if, for example, someone after approval starts making dollars in some online venture, like maybe an influencer, but below SGA, if you are approved based on excessive absences largely. I understand what you're saying. It's certainly probably sedentary. It depends what they're influencing about. I mean, there are influencers that run around all over town and videotape stuff, or they just sit at their own desk. Keep in mind, if there's if absences is the problem, like decompensations, be careful about having a steady schedule, being able to stick to a steady schedule when it comes to influencing versus showing up at someone else's place of work to sit at that computer, right? So one thing, and I don't know if this is true with influencers, because aren't they mostly live streaming or something? I don't know, maybe they're not. The beauty of that can work, maybe, I'm just throwing this out there for future fodder thought amongst the million other things you're going to have to think about if you do this. Videos can be made in advance. So on those good days, right? 2 hours worth of videos or video or whatever. That can then be, 3 different videos later. And then it's not like you showed up 3 times on time to produce, like you publish them at a certain time. You don't necessarily do them at that time. Ready? You know what I'm saying? So you could, that would be a way to, not that it's necessarily going to get that nitpicky when they don't see the income high, because it's all going to be about income, probably with something like that. But if it, you know, if it were, you know, I don't think influencer is a type of job that they exist in substantial numbers in the economy at a substantially gainful rates, right? A lot of people want to be influencers. Very few, you know, are making that higher income. And then of course the ones that do, they make millions, but you know what I mean? But then some people are a little way more moderate. Some it's just extra income that really can help with some bills or whatever. But I think that's kind of cool. And I think if you do it, you better let me know so I can come watch you. For sure. Oh, user. Okay. User's talking about SSI, not SSD. And I got to go up and find you, user. Here we go. I found you really fast. I'm impressed. Hi again. My question will be in multiple parts on SSDI. So I'm going to change the name, right? How much can I earn monthly from part-time self-employment? Very little. Well, how much can you earn? It's SGA. But you want to look at self-employment earnings that they count and tax you on is going to be slightly different than a W-2 person, I believe, because if you make $10,000 in a year, they tax you on slightly less than what a W-2 earner would be taxed on, even though his employer is paying it. And that's because you're paying the employer's half also, that 6-something% there and the 6-something% for yourself. So they actually let you, they don't tax you on that, I believe. So the amount you have to earn to get the credits for it to be SGA might be slightly, I'm not to earn the credits though. Yeah, you know what? Take that back. That's to earn the credits, which is something I was just working on actually. SGA, consider it the same when it comes to going over or under. I believe. But I would never flirt with SGA. I wouldn't even come close. So whatever you're going to do, I would take the W-2 person's amount, and I always say to them, do not flirt with SGA. Do not dance with that fine line. Someone throws on an extra tip on that credit card for that gigger job you did, you just blew it. And now you're SGA. I would stay at least a few $100s clear of SGA. My personal opinion. All right, going back down, catch you again. Oh, no, wait. I just said SSDI, and you said it is SSI. Sorry. So you mean the welfare. Okay. So now we're talking differently. Now we're talking, when is the SSI going to be wiped out? You still have SGA to worry about. But every single month that you earn, the first $65 you earn and that's going to be your net earnings from self-employment. So remember, it's not really what you revenue in. It's better than that for you. And it's hard to judge month to month, particularly when some expenses carry over and they last longer. And so it's easier to do an annual, but your income coming in counts, because remember, that's income in. And for it's going to be a lot more difficult. For every $2 you earn, and that should be net earnings from self-employment. After the first $65, they're going to take away $1 of SSI that you are not entitled to. All right, so you're going to still make more money working than not working overall between the two, but it's a 2-for-1 removal of the work earnings. So I don't know if that helps. I kind of got off on a tangent there because I thought you were talking about SSDI and then SGA. And just like SSI, you got to keep those hours down. And I would document them very well. Document your expenses very well. And all that time sitting on the hopper thinking about your next business plan, don't count that as work. That's hopper time. special time, but you know. John says, thanks for the input. When we saw it was CC Stephanie Joy, I didn't reach out to you. My bad. That is very bad of you. Get me all excited. I'm going to go into the e-file and see if I can see anything. I'm not going to be able to see that letter. I'll have to either wait for it to hopefully get here in the mail, or you can take a picture and send it to me. Richard says, yes, CDR. Okay. Did I answer the question, by the way? Let me go back. I don't think I did. Oh, 90 days since I reviewed for CDR. Let's see. Okay, so those things can take a while. And you know what I find too, Richard? Maybe some of you guys can attest to this if you can chime in. Don't sometimes the CDRs, they're over, but they don't really notify you. Like it's just like, you're not ceased, but they don't send a letter that says, sometimes they do though. So this is what I'm confused about, because it was like, you're CDRing me. I haven't heard. It's been like 2 years. And it's nerve wracking, you know, like you kind of want to know when it's over and then just be prepared for the next one, of course. Hey, Kubi. Hey there, just stopping by. Hey, Koob. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for popping in. Rain Gal's in the house. Hello. It's a process, isn't it? Yes, it is. Yeah. As you know, right? Oh, for sure. Richard says, my house is a rental. It's a CDR. My house is a rental. Oh, the picture. Gotcha. I see the cute little pooch there, too. It's a CDR. Second time they have reviewed me. Oh. Yeah, so 90 days, because to me, it takes as long as a regular adjudication. So sometimes those are going 6 months, a year. I wouldn't be concerned about it if you know you kind of have all your ducks in a row. You've been through it before. I don't know what your parameters are and stuff, your vocational profile, your impairments. Dimple says, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Did you learn that from Christina by chance, Dimple? Oh my gosh, Dimple just gifted, oh, that's very sweet, gifted all 5 things Social Security memberships. That is really sweet. Wow. Huh. I have something that I think I'm going to be sharing to the members. It's not ready yet. We'll see. But thank you, Dimple. That's super sweet. Sarah Garrett says, I filed for OPM disability. Okay, is that federal employment you had? OPM disability retirement. I'm out on medical leave without pay, LWOP, right? Going on 2 months now. Okay. I won't go back to work regardless of the decision. This is Sarah. And by the way, Sarah, I don't think we met, right? If I provide medical docs, does SSA request them again for themselves? Okay, I don't know if you filed yet for your Social Security disability yet, but I would not send them up unless you had an entirely complete set from beginning, or at least a few years before you're disabled, to today or whatever. Like fully complete as of now. And I would only do it after you get an adjudicator. Do not give it to the field office. I find that it rarely makes it up into the file, and here you are thinking it's all sitting pretty up there, and it's never there. I would wait till you get an adjudicator, and if you want to send it, and only do it if it's fully up to par at that time, because I think what happens sometimes is they see that, oh, the claimant sent the records, at least for that provider. And you want to, if you're going to send multiple providers, do not put them on one big stack. Delineate them out, identify which ones they are. And if there's going to be more visits, say this is up to here, but there will be more visits. Because I have seen adjudicators, and this is not to say all of them, I can't speak for all of them, I'm just saying from the experience I've seen. Sometimes they won't order them. Oh, I don't have to get Dr. Jones because she sent them. And a lot of times people are sending partials. And, it's not even the full medical record. It's just maybe some visit notes they had. Even if they had every visit notes, but they don't have everything else. And now you just gave them a reason to not have to do that. And I get it. They don't want to waste their own time. But that's because they think it's all there. But what if you're still going, or what if you only had it through December 2025 when you last got them? And, you know, and if you're thinking that portal records are the same as the official record set, that's not true. They're very helpful, but don't make sure you know that they're not the same generally as the official record set. For instance, portal records, when you print them out, do not show, at least for the major portal companies, all the messaging you did with your doctor. Tell them about this complaint before the next appointment, and you know, can we go over this when I get there, because this has been really bad. You know, it's been really holding me back, or, you know, keep me in bed too many days a week than I would prefer. You know, all those messages not there when you do the document dump from the portal. For the gold standard portals, even that have that opportunity to do a document dump from X date to X, I want everything. Some of these more mom and pop, I'm not going to say their names, but if you're not, put it this way, many of them, if they're not Epic MyChart, I think those go together, I'm not sure, they'll have it where you have to go in and print every test out separately, every visit note separately. I mean, you can't just go and get what would be the full McCoy for each date, like, or all date from this date to this date. And it is a pain in the rear. And then some of them, and I thought this was not legal anymore, but some of them don't provide their progress notes in all that little nitpicky stuff you have to do. And I find that really annoying. Like, oh, well, you can make an appointment here and you can do this and you can get your test results, but not the doctor's notes. Like, why? So just be careful when you do it, and then make sure that you, if you're going to do it, make sure that you let them know that I'm still going to Dr. Jones. This is just through this date. Please order them again from this date, you know, going forward. And that's the risk you would run, Sarah. I mean, if they order them again, that's on them. I wouldn't worry about that too much. That's their problem if they have to read through 2 sets. But my concern is if they don't and you continue to see, or you sent in partial and think that they're going to go get the rest. That's not going to necessarily happen. All right, Gregory Petty's in the house. Good to see you, Gregory. Long time no see. I had to fill out the short form 455 and the long form 454. When I turned them in this week, I got to do both? What? That's weird, isn't it? When I turned them in this week, the Social Security lady at the office told me that the SA needs just the long form. Yeah, because I don't even know why they gave you both, so that's really weird. Did they give you both, or did you just assume? Because at 54, obviously covers everything that the short form would cover, plus a ton more. You follow what I'm saying? So you got a full-blown CDR going on, Gregory. Yeehaw! And that form 454 was a mistake on their part. Well, if it's the long form and they're saying they want all that medical records, that's not a mistake. That's what that would be doing, right? Gregory says, I also gave them a copy of my IQ report from my psychologist from 2020, just in case they need it. Well, what does it show? That you're not under the threshold that you could meet a listing, that you're above it. I mean, you could share that to them, but I don't know that it really does anything favors to you. Unless that's part of your CDR period, but I don't think it is. Okay, Richard says, I will just wait until I get the paper from Social Security. Well, there you go. And hopefully you get the paper from Social Security, right, Richard? Sarah says, I gave them all providers' records and even supporting docs I gave OPM. I've heard it's a lot harder to get SSDI than the first. Yeah, because SSDI, you have to prove you can't do any of the 12,000 jobs that exist in the economy in substantial numbers. FERS, I don't think requires that at all, right? You have to have like a disability that you can't do your job, but not necessarily you can't do all the other ones. It's a much lower standard. Jeanette Meyer says, follow up. Of course, Jeanette. Can you send an adjudicator medical records, MRI CAT scan results that documents original diagnosis? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's probably from the time period before you were alleging your onset date, because you were still able to work, but you had these diagnoses and you had these objective tests. I'd send them. I can't even think of it. I mean, unless they said no, nothing, like perfect, then why would you send it? But if it's even mild, I would send it, because mild is this beginning to moderate, is the beginning to severe. It's kind of like the condition precedent. Sarah says, if you upload the documents online, can the examiner see it immediately? I presume so. I'm presuming. Since we don't do it the same way. Well, I should take that back. When the view that I have, which is different from yours, because you're sending it to your own account, right? And this is how we send ours in, as long as we have electronic file access, which we always do, except I have a case right now. They haven't connected me, and I'm about to pull my hair out. And so I had to fax in a function report, and then I got to fax in a work history report, and I'm not even connected. I want to pound somebody. My client has reached out to our congressperson yet again, because they're about to close their file to feel that it's a whole big train wreck. So the reason why, maybe not immediately, but like within a day, maybe, or maybe it is immediate, because you have two different systems here. But when we upload to the electronic file, which is slightly different, it won't show up that second. Sometimes it'll be a few hours later. I don't really go and track exactly when. I'll check maybe, next time I'm in the file, like sometimes I have to be in the next day. I'll be like, oh, is it? Or I have to upload something else. And I see, it'll say, it's like last time this file was nudged, and it'll have that date. And if it's, let's say today, and I went in again today, I'll be like, that's because I put up those records. But I might not be able to see the records in there yet. And then hopefully they'll show up, usually definitely by the next day. So I don't know if it's the same for you guys, because I think you're sending it a different way and maybe to a different spot. I'd like to think those are connected. But I can't really say. I would say uploading, I'm thinking, Sarah, uploading to your SSA.gov account where you can see them. And I would also take screenshots once they're in there. And I don't know if they text you and say, we got your record, but I would have you keep your proof that you uploaded them. Fax goes into some big R's fax receptacle. Although if you have the barcode page for evidence that they gave it to you, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I think it's supposed to steer itself quickly to right into your e-file of sorts. Do not drop it off at a local office. You got hands on there now. You got little clerks who may not even have gotten out of high school. No, I'm just kidding. Like, things invariably don't get where they're supposed to go. I would say, seems like more often than not, though. But I shouldn't speak to that. I hear it from other people now. We just tell our clients never to do that. There's a rare instance when they have to bring something in. And I always say, if they have to drop something off, and it's never going to be the medical records, I say, you bring a copy and you have them stamped, received, and filed, your copy that you take home with you, and you give them the other one so that you have proof that they got it. And then, because remember, the field office is not the office that's going to be adjudicating it and looking at those records. So they've got to scan it in themselves. And these things kind of disappear. And I don't understand why that is. It could just be a lazy person or an incompetent person. I don't know. So of the two, I would say fax if you have a barcode, or online right to your account that way. I kind of like the first way, the online to your account. And then just make sure you have screenshots that you did it, unless there's like a receipt that prints out. I don't know if you can use your phone or if you use a computer. I'm always a computer person, but for everything we submit, there's a receipt, and I save it to a PDF. You got both forms, Gregory. That sounds like someone made a mistake and sent you both. But, if they want the long form, you did it. So that's good, at least. Sarah says, do you know what SSA does when you get back pay for SSDI and back pay? Nothing anymore. I don't think so. You're talking about a government pension, right? Right? That used to be, that was that whole windfall elimination provision. I believe now, since they got rid of that at the end of 2024. No, wait. Yeah. And don't ask me whether that was appropriate or not. We won't go into that. But the point is, it is what it is, and there should be no offset. So you could be sitting quite comfortable if you prevail on both. This is the good part about that. DJ's in the house. Hi, DJ. Long time no see. A provider that diagnosed my fibromyalgia on top of my osteoarthritis. I have cervical issues, general anxiety disorder, depression. Will not meet with attorney unless paid $380. I don't have that. Should I ask him nicely? I assume you already asked him nicely, and he has a policy of either a retainer or you pay for the consult. He doesn't give them out for free. And what I would find, the only thing I find interesting, and it's just from my perspective, if it's a consultation to see if he's going to take your case, usually those are free, you know. We have, you know, they have to be screened in advance, or else you're on the phone and you're not getting any work done, because everyone's going to want representation if they can get it. And even if you don't have the capacity for that particular case in your, your room and rooms of cases. So for representation, I wouldn't think so. Now, when we have people that we can't represent, we do offer a prepaid consultation. And it goes by the hour, and that wouldn't be that far off the bat. But that's if they have a specific issue. It's not for them to say, would you represent me? Because we're not going to charge somebody to review the evaluation they send in. It takes very short time for them to fill out, and for us to let them know. We say, no, keep looking, we can wait list you, but that you should not stop looking in the meantime, because wait lists can be eternal. Seems eternal. But I don't know what his, maybe he's not a regular practitioner of Social Security disability. It is unusual to see that, unless what it is a consult, and that would be probably reasonable if it's like an hour, at least an hour. So again, I assume you already asked him nicely. Like, you don't seem like the mean person that says, gosh darn, give me a gosh darn meeting with you. So I don't know what that's going to gain you, really. Did you, and you're saying that you would like to meet with an attorney. Or are you saying the provider will not meet with the attorney? Which providers don't meet with attorneys, generally speaking. So I don't know what that is. Make sure I have this right, what I just explained. Or else you're talking about whether the provider would meet with your attorney. There's zero reason for him to do that. So I would expect he would want to be paid, for sure. And by the way, $380 for a doctor to spend time on a legal case, usually it's thousands of dollars an hour. So that would be good. That's what that's not needed in Social Security disability, thank goodness. We don't have the same rules of evidence. We can, in a normal case in state court, and I used to do this, you cannot just put in medical records and have copies made for the jury to look at. That's hearsay. It's out of court statements brought in to prove what they said. Hearsay, not allowed. You have to have the doctor come in and talk about his treatment and everything, and he can look at his records while he's doing so. But the records themselves are not admissible. And that costs thousands of dollars. Think about it. He's got to take a day off of work, This is the first time I had to fill out both form. Yeah, I've never seen that, Gregory. I wonder if anyone else has. Anyone here who's had a CDR? Have you guys ever had both the long form and the short form requested of you? It could be, you know, CDRs are not things that most attorneys practice a lot. I used to have actually a CDR service, which I don't have anymore. Now, occasionally, very occasionally, I'll take them. But it's hard for someone to be able to hire me to take them. So, because, you know, the cost is high for a retainer. So, Gregory, yeah, I'm not sure about that. Sarah, I'm not sure what that question was in preference to. Temple says, don't leave me in suspense. I guess I'll keep an eye on the members only info. Oh, it's really probably, yeah, I'll tell you later. Just something I thought I'd put together, and it would really be generally for claimants generally, but you guys are so supportive of this channel. And for the 1%, 5%ers, which, by the way, some of those are the people that are in the categories that are like, we can never whittle down. So that's why I thought, you know, why not? Sarah says, wonderful. I did have everything. I submitted it and have spoken to a guy who sent me the function report. Okay, so you spoke to the guy. So that would be your adjudicator, sent you the function report and gave me his extension. That's the adjudicator. Very important person for you to communicate with when new visits, new objective diagnostic tests. Yeah, things that go attention to him. So that's good. Yeah, and the fact that, and you can call him and say, I just want to make sure you saw I just sent up 75 pages of whatever. And you can always say, I just want to make sure you see it. But that's really good. Okay. Oh, Sarah, you are a veteran. Thank you for your service. I appreciate it. Everyone here does. We are very pro-veteran right now. The VA blue button records are definitely not the same as your complete medical records. You know, we do use the VA blue. Sometimes the SSA goes ahead and does their own little HITMR, but then they wait such a big gap of time. Yeah, we do use them a lot because you almost have no choice if you want things to get in timely. But they're so, did you notice, Sarah? And this is true of some people's portal records too that are non-VA. But it's like 70 pages for one visit because they have this blah, 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 stupid. When really what you want is the doctor's notes. And I guess you can kind of cut it. I think you can maybe. I'm not sure what you guys can do. It's hard to share the access because with the two-factor authentication and such. Randall says, you are right. I just checked with the SSA website. If I became disabled now, payment would be $937. I see professional. Can I pay hourly if you will not take my case? Age 42, lots of recent treatment. Yeah, you could definitely do a consult. I will say at $937, Randall, you're going to want to do, unless you're independently wealthy otherwise and have decently more than $2,000 in countable assets, including bank accounts in your name and stuff, or 2 cars or a spare piece of real estate that could be sold. You're going to be able to get some SSI if you want it tacked on, and depending on your state, they might actually tack on a little bit more. That can give you an extra few $100. Just saying that. So make sure you have a concurrent claim, if appropriate, your SSDI claim and the SSI claim. Okay. They gave me both. That's Gregory. I'm thinking they made a mistake to do that. But the short form is really short. What did it take you? You know, well, unless you're really nervous about it, it doesn't take that long, right? Sarah says, my local office won't allow us to see anyone without an appointment, and they make you drop the records in a Dropbox. Yeah, don't do that. Don't drop anything in a Dropbox. I think that's craziness. Would you do that anywhere? You know, I wouldn't. I realize why they have to have it, because some people are just not going to be able to muster up enough to do anything but do that, whether it's for mental cognitive reasons or physical reasons. It's all they can muster. They're probably the same people that don't keep a spare copy for themselves of their medical records. To not drop things off in a Dropbox. If you do, at least also fax a copy to the, I don't know, where you have a confirmation, but you have to always keep a copy for yourself. And Sarah, I can tell you already know this. You seem like you're kind of on the ball. Not that everybody else isn't on the ball. It's just that those Dropboxes are an invitation for horrors. Same way in the voting sphere, they shouldn't exist. They shouldn't be used by people here unless you are absolutely desperate and have no choice. DJ says, consult from a spine pain doctor, 15 minutes. You're going to one? Good, DJ. Oh, consult from a spine. Oh, so the spine, a 15-minute consult, $380. Why would he even need to meet? Did your attorney tell you he needs to talk to him? That's weird. I mean, maybe he has his reasons. Is he trying to get like an RFC out of him? Like a medical opinion on what your RFC is? Yeah, that would be, they're going to charge for that. Particularly if he's not your treating doctor, and they still sometimes charge, or they just say no. But yeah, you can be expecting to pay a huge amount. $380 is actually pretty good. I just don't know what is to be gained from a 15-minute. The guy has either treated you, and he has records, and he's a good recorder, or he sucks, or you never seen him, and his records stink. So you're stuck with kind of, those are the wild cards. The quality of the recording and the reporting by anyone we go to for a visit. And I'll tell you, I think the majority are pretty bad. I just do. And then there's some angels out there, and there's some really, really competent, I don't know. Don't even get me started on the medical industrial complex at this point. Your attorney wanted to talk to him. That's interesting. Is it your treating doctor? You have a treating spine specialist? Your attorney, if you do, then your attorney probably already has those records, and maybe he wants to know if the doctor would fill out a form. But if that's the case, why not just prepare the form, which takes a little bit of time if it's going to be done in tune with that specialist's existing medical records for you, and send it to him and say, will you fill this out? And then even like maybe write the $380 check for that to entice him to fill it out. And then cross your fingers and try on a star that he fills it out in a way that is not indicative of being very impaired but not disabled under the rules. Because you could be paying money for something that's not really going to help you and actually goes against the case. DJ says, now I have, I got it now. Sarah says, yes, it's insane, ridiculous how long the VA records are. Every 3 pages is a recap of your medication list. I know, it's asinine. It really is. DJ says, I was thinking of sending an email personally explaining my financial situation and how much I'd appreciate his help meeting. Yeah, you and about 3 million other people have asked him for the same thing. Meeting with my attorney briefly on the phone to discuss my prognosis. It's not what he says that's going to matter. You can't admit that. It's going to be what he has in writing. So, did he not put a prognosis on your treatment records? Do you have treatment records? I'm not sure I have that answer. If he's your treater, or you guys found a good specialist and you want to have a consult with him. And if so, why don't you instead you probably have some sort of health insurance, right? Medicaid or private or whatever. Medicaid, I mean. Try to get, if he doesn't take Medicaid, then you're screwed. But I was going to say, try to get and make him a treater, and then he has to have a medical record, and it should have a prognosis. It should. But again, what they put in their records is so crappy sometimes. The job is like 20% done a lot of times. Jen says, I had a 2-bed, 2-bath as part of the role. I'm not sure what we're talking about here. I don't even know what we're talking about. I had a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment as part of the. I don't even know what we're talking about here. Jen, I'm confused. Hey, we're gonna find it. I think this is the ALJ saying we're gonna find out what the apartment was worth, but this was pre-AOD in 2019. This is unsuccessful work attempt. Anyways, rate for anything to really matter about this, right? I don't understand what are you talking about an apartment for? What's the relevance here? And why is it value? Is that because of SSI? Like, did you have a spare piece of real estate that you could have sold this for and not get SSI? Like, what's going on? I'm sorry, I missed something, didn't I? Something about a role. I don't know what that is. My attorney says it's not uncommon with my insurance provider to have doctors request money. No, it has nothing to do with the insurance provider. It has. So it sounds like he's your treating doctor. You're asking him to do something he's not required to do, which is provide a 15-minute consult to your attorney or you outside the course of a visit, or to fill out a form for you. I'm telling you, it's 95% aren't going to do it. Or they're going to try to whack you. And then you have your gems, your super, super good, nice, conscientious doctors who not everything is about the squeaky dollar. True. I think RFC, yes. Okay. So, yes. So they're talking about getting this, probably your treating spine doctor, to fill out a form. Why does your doctor, your lawyer probably wants to speak to him to say, would you be answering this, this, and this? Because if your provider gets the RFC opinion, it's his opinion of what your RFC is from the doctor, eventually he has to submit it, even if it's terrible for you. Yes. Generally speaking, we have to submit good, bad, or ugly. So unless he's tailoring that RFC in a way that says, I mean, it's going to be hard. I mean, I get it. He probably wants to ask him what the answers are going to be before he puts it down in writing, before the doctor makes a record of it. Because if your lawyer gets that record, he has to then shoot it out to SSA under the rules, as would you if you didn't have a lawyer. It's a legal obligation. Good, bad, or ugly, those records have to go in. So your lawyer is probably hoping, and this is very typical. None of these big guys are going to do this for free. And your lawyer sounds like he might be concerned. I'm just saying might, and want to talk to him first and be like, are you going to say that he can't stand more than an hour a day? Are you going to say, like, because he wants to know if the answers are going to be favorable to you before he gets them carved into a record, and then you can't get rid of them. That makes sense, but that's a lot of money. And then, of course, you have to pay money on top of the $380 50 minutes, for him to then complete and sign the actual piece of paper. Now, it could be your lawyer does the fill in for him, but your lawyer has to tell the judge if he does that too. Like, we have to tell them how it came to be that the doctor filled it out. So if your doctor is being the scrivener, I mean your lawyer, and then says, here, doc, this is what you told us. Is this, as you would call it, and get a signature on it. You're supposed to tell them how you did that. I have at times had a good medical source opinion, we call them, because it's not the RFC, it's his opinion on what the RFC should be, from a different doctor or a nurse practitioner. And it's got the answers that we think are true and helpful. And sometimes I'll take that piece of paper and it's original. I'll attach a piece of paper in the end that says, I'm, Dr. So-and-so. I have read the attached opinion of provider so-and-so, and it could be it could be anybody, if he's an acceptable source. And I agree with all of the limitations expressing that these would apply to this person, in that time frame, etc. And then he didn't have to fill it out. He just had to agree with the existing one, and we attached on the back. And now you technically have two experts that agree primarily with each other on that level of, it's a tactic. And sometimes they're more willing to do that. Maybe they'll do it for cheaper. I don't know. Matt says, where are we at, guys, by the way? I think we're close to the end, right? Because it is, oh my God, we're 2.5 hours in. SSDI award letter says, I need a representative paying. Okay. That is most likely to be my biological father. I live with him. Okay, that would be expected, I suppose. How does this work? He pays monthly expenses and sends remaining funds to me? No. He pays the monthly expenses and saves the remaining funds for you for when you have a need. He can give you allowance, though. The reason why you're not representative payee is because they've figured that you are not able to handle your own monies. So he can't just give you the balance, because he's also responsible for anything that's not needed for your current basic needs to save for you. If it's SSDI, you can have savings, unlike SSI, right? So he could save it. He can grow a savings for you. So later on, maybe you can buy a house. I mean, whatever it's going to be. For, some need you might have. When you have Medicare, you'll have copays. You'll have deductibles. The savings is good for that. So he's not going to send you the rest to do whatever you want, although he can and probably should give you a little allowance so that you can, if you go to the store and you want to buy a candy bar, or whatever. Or, he keeps some because what if you want to go to the movies? There's money there, you might have blown it or whatever, So basically, he pays your bills, and whatever is not used for your bills, he puts in a appropriate savings vehicle for you. If you can continue to save, you can actually be investing and getting you all sorts of monies. You're welcome, Matt. Sorry, Jen. If I can roll up, I will. Let me just see where I'm going here. Should the RFC be filled out prior, asked to sign it? Well, you heard what I said about if you fill it out, you have to tell the doctor you filled it out, and then the doctor's probably going to give it very little weight. They know it's been a whole big arranged thing with money, and it just doesn't give a lot of credibility to the doctor's opinion because it's been bought and paid for. This is why if a doctor did his jobs with his records, you wouldn't need an RFC. You wouldn't need a medical source statement. But because they don't, they leave you hanging, and now they can offer to make you pay. It's disgusting. I think you make good points on his notes. He's a specialist. My primary doctor sent me to. Okay. By filling it out before he signs it, you gain the fact that you know what the answers are going to be. Unless he crosses them out and initials, he changes it on you. But you have to tell the judge that you did that. Technically. It's difficult. It's difficult. Hey, Chef Dad's in the house. Hey there. Is it helpful to send my doctors a brief symptom update before appointments, outlining any new or worsening conditions? Yes. Limitations and daily difficulties? Yes, yes, yes. And request the notes be added to the records? All right. Yes, however, you want to do it in a way that doesn't look like you're planting things for the SSA. So I've seen people go into ChatGPT and have it, they tell them this and this big, beautifully sophisticated SSA worded thing comes out. I'm like, no. You want it to be naturally where you are before an appointment. Hey, doc, we have an appointment in 4 weeks. I just want to tell you how bad things have been these last 2 weeks. Remember this happened to me also 3 months ago, doc? These flares or what. I've been bedridden most of the time. The sores on my feet are still not gone, so I can't walk around. That's why I'm, in the recliner or in bed. Yeah, I'm making stuff up. But, it's not so hard to do when it's new or worsening conditions. when you start talking about the daily difficulties, which is helpful, but you got to do it in a way, I think, that is, so you don't want to go too long and detailed and big worded. Be like, Doc, I can't even get up and go make a go get my cereal in the morning. My feet are so bad. Or, or let's say you're, I don't know what your problems are, so it's hard for me to give examples, but I wouldn't be putting it in there like you're drafting a function report response, because it's just going to look very contrived. He might not appreciate it because he's being played. We can play him, but don't let him know about it. But just just very natural. Like, I want to go over this and this. It's really impacting my ability to walk during the day. Then you don't have to tell him about whether you walk here or there. Be on my feet for more than a few minutes, and it's really impeding and it hurts really bad. Can we talk about this in my next appointment? So I keep it short. I keep it sweet. And the new conditions. What we're talking about is kind of about worsening conditions, right? But if you do it right, I think it's very useful, because, and I wouldn't say, please add these notes to the records. What I would do was, I don't know if you're going to send this by fax or by portal. Probably portal. And if it is by fax, then when you order the records, maybe you should go and order them. You want to see if it made it into the records, right? Because you send it to them and communication should go in. If you download your portal records, it is my understanding, we were talking about this before, that your messages through the portal do not show up in the portal messages. It shows up from the official record set, supposedly. So that's something that's a big problem with portals. Even the best of them, even the gold standard one that I was talking about before. No barking. Sorry, the dog is annoying me. So I wouldn't tell him what to do with it. It's his job to do that. So I think that could be insulting. I would see if they're in there. And then if later on you can order your own records from this date to this date, and you sent these messages, so keep track. You could say, I communicated in writing to the doctor about some issues, and I see that it's not in my medical record, and I know it's legally required to be in there, my communications with my doctor. So I need you to remember that. Did you guys lose it? Do you need another copy? I don't know. That might be something to say, later. It's kind of like if they make it's a mistake in your record, because it's showing that you said nothing when you did. You complained about XYZ, and it shows that you made no such complaint on that day, right? By them leaving it out, omission is the fact that now you got no complaints that day. You are golden, when in fact you weren't, and you expressed them. So sometimes in those communications, you can say, we discussed my lower leg edema and swelling that occurs during the day. We talked about it, several months ago, Doc. I just want to circle back to it because it is getting worse and worse. I'm up for a half hour and my feet start swelling again, and it kind of hurts. And so I've been having to increase my time in my recliner, which stinks because I really want to be up and about. That helps my back better, but I have to keep going back because the swelling gets really bad. Can we discuss this and see if maybe there's any, new therapies for that or medications? It doesn't mean you have to take whatever. It doesn't mean anything about what he does later. It's just that you just fed it in there in a way that's kind of natural and is what you're really wanting to get to. So if you kind of keep it in terms of what a patient would be trying to get to, and not say, I really want you to put this in my file because I'm sending it to the SSA, that's probably not good, So we don't want it to look like that. Or look like you chat GPT'd it, which is funny because regular people do chat GPT things to make things look clear and all that. But I'm just not sure that technology has been around long enough for the SSA not to take it all the wrong way or something. I don't know. That's a judgment call. Sarah says, how does a 5 or 6 month rule work? Do they count back pay? I don't even know what rule you're talking about. So you're going to have to. Are you talking about the waiting period? That would be 5 months, but Tell me if that's what you're talking about. Ronald Perry's in the house. A Jets fan. What are the work limits if we have SSDI? There's several. Which one are you referring to? I would say this, Ronald Perry, if we're not going to have time to get to you, and I don't know, like, because I don't know the parameters of what you're trying to get to, but there is a playlist called Working While Disabled. It's got a ton of videos in there, so look at the headings and see which ones apply. But it's things to, you're going to want to learn about TWP, SGA, EPE, and those are just the starters. So there's quite a bit to think about. Not to mention the optic parameters of when you're working. It's all good, though. I think it's great if you do it. You just want to be very careful and make sure it all fits in those ways. We do offer consults on those, guys, if anyone needs it. If you're going back to work, they cost money, though. It's a private one-on-one with me, separate from like my client work, obviously, because it's you're a non-client. If it's a client, obviously they don't have to pay for the consult. Thankful Days Ahead is in the house. Hi there. Can a 63-year-old who got SSDI at 59 with a routine future exam set at 67, oh, you mean a CDR, have to worry that they could change the year to sooner? I don't think so. If you started working, or did some major change that they have to, relook at things, or if you work over SGI, then you would have a situation, but you don't mention that. So in and of itself, they're not really doing that. I mean, in theory, if some brand new invention came about that eliminated or massively improved people with your condition, the one that primarily takes you out, or a lesser one even, yeah, in theory, but do you expect that to happen? We don't see that happen, right? We just don't see that happen overnight. So I don't think that would be something to worry about. And particularly, your age is helpful. You know it, right? Go 60s. See, I'm shaking myself up. We got another year or so. Shep Dad says L5 S1 fusion and need cervical surgery upcoming. Oy vey. Prayers to you there, Shep Dad. That's not easy, but I hope it helps your problems. I'm just scrolling up to see if that was a particular response to something. I don't see it. All right. We're almost at the bottom here, guys. Good, because we're way over the 2-hour mark. Dimple says, I hope you have a wonderful weekday. You too, Dimple. I got to get up and move around. Been watching you from my laptop instead of my phone. Probably wasn't a good idea. I hear you. Oh, Thankful Days Ahead became a new member. That's super sweet. Awesome. I gotta get up my phone. Thankful says, was a member forever. Oh, okay. K9. I know who you are. But the ability to join above the $2.99 membership is gone. No worries. No worries. That was super sweet. Wanted to enroll in that to no avail, so hit the $2.99. Listen, it's all really good. All out there should remember Stephanie's the best. You're the best. You're so sweet for saying that. All right. Sarah says yes, and so I heard. And she says, sorry, they won't pay you until you're disabled like 5 months. Yes, that's the waiting period. It starts generally the month after the month they establish that your EOD is your established onset date. So if they found you disabled in January of 2026, February, March, April, May, June would be the waiting period. No payments, even though you were found disabled for those months. June, did I say June? February, March, April, May, June. July would be your first month owed. And that's going to be the start of your back benefits. So if it takes 7 months, for example, and you're approved, you're only paid back. No, because let's say you applied January of 2026, and you said I was disabled in 2024, and they agree in the end that yes, indeed, our onset is January of 2024. Your 5 months would have occurred in the past. So that July of 2024, would be your potential back benefit start dates. Hold on. You applied in January of 26. January of 25 is 12 months. 5 months before that is July. You would pretty much not have lost. Nope, you would. Because remember, there's a 5-month waiting period, and they only pay 12 months before the date of application. So if you applied in January of 2026, no matter how far back they found you, you're never going to get paid more than 12 months before the January of 2026, if that's your application date. However, if you were disabled back in 2024, right, so you can get paid for 2025, but not all the way back to even the 5 months, but the 5 months will have been used up. You just might have a couple months where it precedes the 12 months that precede the date of application. But your 5 months would have been used up. So you're going to get all those 12 months before you applied, plus all the time that it's taken since. So if it's now 7 months since you applied in January, you're going to get the full 12 months before January, plus all these 7 months after. It's all yours because your 5 months was the 5 months before the 12 months. You follow? So the 5 months can be in the past before you even applied. I hope that helps. Gotta love those back benefits, right? I mean, we love them too because our fee's based on that most of the time. But I love it when I see a big one, not to mention because it's the max fee for us, but my person has a nest egg, you know? So that's why we're always trying to, just as an aside here, you can get the best onset date back, assert it to begin with, one that's reasonable under the law, and certainly under the law. And then later on, you might have, it might not work because what you factually did with your doctors didn't suffice back then. But you can't even get to the point of knowing that if you don't assert what you legally can and know that you were impaired at the time and you weren't working or working SGA. So, anywho, we're almost here. Diana's late to the house. Gillespie, hello, Diana. Stephanie, how does it work if SS believes you became disabled June of 2024? How does it work if SS believes you became disabled and are disabled today, but expect your condition may improve a year or two from now? Oh, most people, they have MIE, medical improvement expected. You're going to have a CDR. And if your medical records are going to show whether there's notable improvement, and if so, is it enough to go get some sort of job based on the rules that you have to follow, whatever your vocational profile is now at the time of the CDR. But everyone goes through a CDR, and that's what you're going to be going through too. Specifically, if you have an MIE, medical improvement expected. So 2024, you're saying, did they give you a 3-year? 24, 26, 20. But they give you, did they say, I wonder what your diary was. That's called your diary. But yeah, CDR. So just stay with your follow-up with your appointments. Even if you're not nearly as robust as you were when you were first afflicted and trying to get remedies, and now you guys have settled into like, well, this is the treatment, and we know the diagnosis, we know the treatment, we know there's no cure, we know that. Continue your follow-ups no matter what, because that will prove, and then don't be talking about how you're, going mountain climbing every day, or every quarter, every season, and then if you haven't improved, you're going to be fine. But you have to make sure your records don't tell a false story, or your failure to go to the doctor will tell its own story. Sarah, oh, you are so welcome. She says, thanks a million. I'm so grateful for this info. You are awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You guys are so sweet. All right, so we're done for the day. Next Wednesday is next Thursday, not next Wednesday. I will be coming back from a brief trip with my kids from Sunday to Wednesday. So we won't be having the 1 o'clock on Wednesday. We'll have 1 o'clock on Thursday the next day. Okay. I did put that in the posts on the main page, whatever they call that. And I will probably post it again because I don't want people showing up when I'm not going to be there. And I want them to show up on Thursday. So hopefully that will work. Same time, same bat time, same bat station, just a different day. And then we'll be back to our Wednesdays. All right. Lily LaRocha says, Stephanie, why would the SSA request for you to have an authorized representative when you are responsible for your own day-to-day affairs? Some people can do certain day-to-day affairs, but they are maybe spendthrifts. Like they're irresponsible with money. It could be a person with like significant bipolar to depressive manic, and sometimes in a manic stage they go out and they spend money. So, you know, they go shopping sprees and stuff like that. That's just one example. But for the most part, people don't need them. So, you know, it's usually significant mental health problems or physically can't do the things that they need to do to pay the bills. So they, you know, they're either mentally are going to blow their money, or mentally they can't remember to pay their bills, or yeah, they'll spend the money, or they physically can't do it. So it's not without need. And sometimes people are told that we got to see if you need it's not an authorized representative, by the way. It's a representative payee, it's called. And I've had someone that comes here quite a bit. She got rid of her representative payee. Her doctor said, I think she can handle her money with automatic bill pay now. People that couldn't do it before, when it was check writing, sending that on time, making sure there's stamps in the house. Things are different now. People get set up once on auto pay from that same account their money's coming into. You know, so that's really helpful to not need a representative payee because of that. So it's a good thing. All right, guys. Yes, LaRocho, Lily, see you next week. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'll see you guys next Thursday, and then we'll be back to Wednesdays. And if you can turn on and take a listen here and there to the 12 o'clock p.m. Pre-recordeds, that would be great, because that is the bread and butter, really, of what brings in. It's not major, but it's enough to where we have increased those 1%ers, which is those categories that get filled up. You know, we always take them, but we can only take so many because there is a lot of pro bono work. So you guys really help that a lot with supporting the channel. So I appreciate it. Have a great one, and I will see you next week or around the block. If you have any videos that you think would be suitable, I didn't get to go through my messages, all the comments on the post this week. I'm going to do that for the end of the week. I wanted to have it done before this morning, of course. But you can put any question you have under any video. I will get to it. I see them all. It's me. Yeah. It's not one of my trusteds, because they got other better things to do. Not that it's not great, but this is more between me and you guys. All right. I'll talk to you later. Thanks again for showing up and saying hi. I appreciate it. Bye, guys.